Chapter 1153. Everyone looked at Lucian with knit brows. Everyone was worried about how to escape, but he was focused on a small magic communicator. He really didn't know how to adapt to the situation. The girl was stunned for a moment. Her eyes, which were completely different from her stiff and wooden face, turned and smiled. "What? You have a way to solve the communication problem?" "My specialty is magic communication. I can give it a try." "All right, you try it first. I'll stop those fellows first." The girl put the magic communicator in Lucian's hand, and then in front of everyone's shocked cries, she charged forward to meet the 3 magic chariots charging at them. "You'd better run away by yourself," the boy who reminded her just now shouted. "If you're caught, we're all finished." Hearing this, the others who had been a bit confused came back to their senses. They all shouted out, telling the girl to quickly escape. However, the girl looked back at everyone and let out a crisp and pleasant chuckle. Then, with a wave of her hand, a long, steel-like object suddenly appeared in her hand. Seeing this thing, the students behind her were all stunned. This thing, if they weren't wrong, it was clearly a single magic rocket. This strange girl being able to take things out of the magic space was something that everyone could barely accept, but no one would have thought that she would actually take out a single magic rocket. Everyone was stunned as they watched the girl skillfully place the magic rocket on her shoulder. With a pung sound coming from her mouth, a dazzling red light shot out from the barrel of the magic rocket. In the blink of an eye, that flame had already hit one of the 3 magic war chariots that were charging over. The explosion made everyone's ears ring. However, seeing the magic chariot being sent flying and falling to the ground like a toy, bouncing twice before exploding in flames and not being able to move, everyone's expressions became even more stunned. This wasn't the magic chariot the strongest weapon on the battlefield, second only to the magic tanks? Wasn't it said that even great magicians couldn't resist it? Why? Why was it destroyed by a single magic rocket? The most important thing was that the one who fired this single magic rocket was a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old. The enemies on the other side were clearly scared by the might of this single magic rocket. The remaining 2 magic war chariots quickly separated and approached from both sides. While running, he was still moving in a snake shape. It was clear that he was worried that the girl would fire another single magic rocket. But the girl looked over the 2 magic chariots and gave a laugh. She threw the magic rocket on her shoulder to the ground and reached out her hand, taking out another one. The students behind her stared at her with their mouths agape. They didn't know what kind of expression to show. This guy? Could it be that he's using my portable mana storage as an arsenal? Boom! Another flame was shot out. No matter how the magic war chariot dodged, this single magic rocket still drew a beautiful arc in the air and accurately hit it. Seeing the magic war chariot explode into flames, the remaining magic war chariot immediately turned in a large circle and charged into the depths of the manor without any hesitation, but it didn't have the courage to charge forward at all. The girl threw the single magic rocket to the side and clapped her hands. She shook her head and said with a dissatisfied sigh, "Hi, these human traffickers really don't have any courage. I was even planning on fighting them." Everyone watched in a daze as she walked back to Lucian's side. "Hey, do you know what the problem is?" Lucian, who had been studying the magic communicator attentively, replied without raising his head, "It must have been affected by the anti-magic circle here, which caused the transmission of magic power signals to be blocked. That's why the communication could not be established." "Then do you have a way to solve it?" "Perhaps, but I need time." "Need time?" The girl turned back to look into the depths of the manor. When the magic war chariot escaped, there was an ear-piercing alarm that rang out in the manor. One could see the dust rising in the manor and a figure standing there. It was clear that the other side had reacted and knew that the matter here wasn't simple, so they couldn't treat it lightly. "Hurry up. I don't think we can stop them for long." "All right, but can you give me some data first?" Lucian looked up at the girl. "Oh, what data?" The girl asked back. "Since you can use magic here at will, you should be very clear about the various data in the magic space affected by this magic forbiddance, right? Give it to me. I can send out the magic communication signal without being affected." The girl's bright, dark eyes looked over, as if she was looking over Lucian for a while before saying with a faint smile, "I can't give you detailed data right now, but I think you only need to know one key piece of data. The high-frequency resonance of the magic elements here is between 27.6 and 29.3 hertz. You know this, then isn't that?" Lucian was stunned. He wanted to ask more, but the girl had already turned to leave with a smile. Lucian was stunned for a bit, but he knew that now wasn't the time to keep asking. He could only lower his head and nervously adjust the magic communicator in his hand. Because he didn't have any tools on him, he could only use his magic to adjust it, but it was much slower than ideal. Their only hope was how long the girl could hold off the enemy. After the girl left Lucian's side, she waved her hand at the others. "It's best if you all move back a bit, otherwise you'll be caught in the crossfire later." The other students looked at each other, and some of them obediently moved back. The boy who suggested the girl to run away took a step forward and reached out his hand to the girl. "You should have more military magic machines, right? Give me some, and I'll stop the enemy with you. Also, it's best if you tell us how you use magic. We are all magicians here, so although we aren't that strong, we should be able to help." The girl seemed a bit surprised as she looked at him. "What is your name?" "Just call me Tanson." The boy shook his head. "Now isn't the time to talk about this. Give me the weapon and tell us how to remove the influence of the anti-magic field array here. With your current ability, I'm afraid you won't be able to master this method in a short time. But if you stand beside me, I can change part of the magic space around you, and you'll have the ability to use the magic elements again." The girl said. Everyone was shocked again. Changing the magic space around you? That was already related to the domain. Could it be that this girl had already reached such a terrifying level? This was too unbelievable. Seeing the surprised expression on everyone's faces, the girl obviously guessed what they were thinking. She shrugged and said, "I'm not as powerful as you think. It's just a trick. You also know that in the current system of magic theory, the domain that used to belong to magicians isn't actually that amazing, right?" "Right, my ass." Although 10 years ago, the president of the New Flyer, Sue E., had proposed a scientific view of magic, the magicians on the continent had already established a completely different system of magic theory. Many of the magicians of the past thought that magic was inconceivable had been thoroughly analyzed, and the domain, which was regarded as the highest realm of magicians, was no longer a secret. However, it was already extremely difficult to truly understand these theories, and to actually use them was even more difficult. Even if there were some young magicians who didn't actually have the strength of a magician who could partially grasp the power of a domain, but no matter what, it shouldn't be possible for this young girl to grasp it, right? All right, the enemy is here. If you want to fight with me against the enemy, then stand beside me. At least here, you can use the magic elements to form a magic shield, and I can also protect you while I'm at it. If you don't want to, then just stand a little further away." The girl waved her hand and gave the order. The students looked at each other before 3 girls and 6 boys moved to the side. The remaining 10 students, including Tansun, stayed by the girl's side. "Very good. It seems like most of the young people nowadays are quite brave." The girl had the appearance of an elder as she nodded in satisfaction. Then she waved her hands, and various kinds of military magic machines appeared from the space, piling up in front of her after a while. "All right, everyone pick what you like and what you find pleasing to the eye." The girl waved her hands as if she was going to jump off a building and have a sail. The remaining students couldn't help but twitch their mouths. After hesitating for a bit, they each picked a military magic machine that they had some impression of and held it in their hands. For these students of the academy, they had heard of and seen military magic machines on various news programs many times, but it was the first time they had actually touched one in real life. Therefore, everyone was nervous and excited at the same time. They were all at a loss for what to do. The girl looked over everyone and found that other than Tansun, who was holding a multiple-barrel magic machine gun, the others all looked like amateurs. However, she didn't look worried at all. She just took another look at Tansun before waving her hand and shouting, "Very good. Now, everyone charge with me." Everyone reflexively wanted to rush forward, but they immediately reacted. "Charge? Charge where?" Seeing everyone stumbling around, The girl began to laugh like she didn't care at all. Everyone's faces couldn't help twitching. Just what kind of person was this girl? She actually thought of making such a bad joke in this kind of situation. Seeing everyone's unkind expressions, the girl kept laughing with an expressionless face while waving her hand. All right, it's just a casual joke, don't mind it. Everyone follow me later, don't go too far from me. Let's properly teach these human traffickers a lesson. These words were considered decent, so there were a few hot-blooded boys who followed her and shouted a few times. But just as they were nervously and expectantly waiting for the arrival of the enemy, Lucian's shout suddenly rang out from behind them. The signal is connected. Chapter 1154. As soon as the green indicator light lit up, an impatient, middle-aged man's voice came from the magic communicator in Lucian's hand. "Hello, miss, where are you? Are you all right?" "Miss?" Lucian was stunned. He looked up at the girl who had turned around after hearing his shout and understood. "Hello, I am—" Lucian had just opened his mouth when he was rudely interrupted by the voice coming from the magic communicator. "Who are you? Where's the miss? What did you do to her? I'm warning you. If you dare to touch a single hair on the miss, I promise you and the people behind you will die miserably." Lucian knit his brows. Why did this conversation sound like a scene from a novel? Although he already knew that she wasn't an ordinary girl when she took out the single magic rocket, he was still a bit surprised when he heard the anxious and exasperated voice on the other side of the magic communicator. This girl, her background wasn't simple. She might be from a noble family in the Empire, but from the girl's actions, she didn't seem like a girl from a noble family who had been strictly disciplined. "Your miss is fine, she's now." Lucian looked up and said, "She's walking over here. You can talk to her." Lucian stuffed the magic communicator into the girl's hand, as if he was passing away a hot potato. "Hello, is this Uncle Harris? Don't worry, I'm fine now. HM? Oh, I'm fine, I'm really fine. These human traffickers just got some old military equipment from who knows where. They're not a threat to me. Of course, don't you believe in my strength? HM, I didn't say that you can't come. Instead, I hope you can come as soon as possible. Don't misunderstand, I'm not in danger, but I have some children who need to be protected. Also, there must be a lot of people here, so it's best if you come quickly." Hearing the conversation between the girl and the magic communicator, everyone's expression became more and more strange. This strange girl who appeared out of nowhere seemed to have a very deep background. She seemed to be very clear about what the enemies here were doing. Furthermore, from her tone, it seemed like she had been deliberately captured just for this place. With the strength she had shown before and the background she had revealed now, she might be able to deal with the enemies here. But why did she have to take the risk herself? If her helpers were strong enough, why didn't they just come knocking on her door? The girl's conversation did not last long. She hung up the magic communicator and stuffed it back into Lucian's hands. "Maintain its communication status." Lucian nodded. Following the method he had just tested, he adjusted the special wave band of the magic signal output by the magic communicator. The girl shrugged her shoulders at the others and spread out her hands. There was still no change in her expression, but her helplessness was clearly displayed. "Sai, I originally wanted to make a big fuss with you guys, but unfortunately, I can't anymore. It couldn't be helped. Since my helpers had already found me, there was nothing left for us to do. All right, let's find a place to hide for a while. You'll be safe once our helpers arrive." Another round-faced girl couldn't help but ask, "Your helpers must be very far from here, right? How did they get here so quickly?" "That's right. Unless it's the new Flyer's newest magic airship. How could they get here so quickly?" The boy who was speaking next suddenly stopped mid-sentence and looked up at the sky with the others. Two shadows suddenly appeared in the sky, covering the top of the crowd. With the bright sunlight, everyone could tell that these two giant shadows were two magic airships. Everyone was stunned as they watched the two magic airships quickly fall from the sky. One of them blocked their path, and the other one landed on the grass beside them. The door of the magic airship opened, and a middle-aged man in a military uniform charged out, flying to the girl's side. "Young miss, I've finally found you." When the middle-aged man saw the girl, he shouted out in an exaggerated voice, "Do you know that when I lost contact with you, I was almost scared to death?" The girl giggled. I already said that nothing would happen to me. Uncle Harris, if you keep scaring yourself like this, be careful that you don't live much longer. The middle-aged man called Uncle Harris touched his chest and gave a cold snort with knitted brows. When wasn't it because you scared me? You're not embarrassed to say this. The girl tugged at his arm, pointed at the other students around them, and then pointed at the manor in front of them. All right, let's not talk about this. Uncle Harris, look, these are the ones who were caught at the same time as me. From the information I've received, they're all students from the various schools. As for this manor, it should be the nest of these human traffickers. You should know what to do. You don't need me to say it, right? Harris turned to look at the large number of magic chariots charging out of the manor and gave a cold snort. His expression instantly turned cold and filled with killing intent. I've long wanted to catch these scum in one fell swoop. Young miss, since you've taken the risk this time and found their nest, it's easy. In front of us. Coup. They're just some old military magic machines. They can't be our match. After saying this, Harris looked at the surrounding students with confused looks before saying to the girl, Young miss, the people of the Kamla Empire are behind us and will be here soon. You should leave with the students in the airship first. We will take care of the rest. The girl rolled her eyes. I knew that I wouldn't have a chance to show off once you came. But forget it. I've already had my fill, so I'm satisfied. Uncle Harris, there must be other people who were caught in the manor. You have to ensure their safety. Harris gave her a reassuring gesture. With a wave of his hand, he led the fully armed soldiers who came out of the magic airship behind him into the manor. All right, now it's time for Uncle Harris and the others to work. You can all leave this place with me first. The girl waved her hand at everyone before heading to the magic airship left behind. The students finally saw the hope of escaping, so of course they didn't dare hesitate. They quickly followed the girl and entered the magic airship. This magic airship looked like a medium-sized magic airship, but it was still 50-60 meters long and 10 meters wide. After entering, they found that it was very spacious and it was very easy for them to fit more than 10 people. This was the first time these students had entered the magic airship, so they all curiously looked around. Looking around, they found that the interior of this magic airship was different from the magic airships they saw in the magic projectors. Compared to the passenger magic airships that often appeared, this magic airship was much simpler. There weren't any fancy decorations at all, and it was very angular, but there was also a bit of coldness to it. These students were clear that this magic airship wasn't a normal civilian magic airship. Rather, it should be a military magic airship. Everyone looked at the girl with different gazes. That Harris had called her young miss, which meant that this girl should be the descendant of a large noble family and her status should be quite high. Combined with the fact that the magic airship they were in was a military magic airship, could this girl be the descendant of a large noble family in the Empire? But that Harris had said the people of the Kamla Empire are behind, which meant that he should be from another country. This girl's identity made people even more curious. Just who was she? After Lucian entered the magic airship, he didn't look around like the others. Rather, he kept his head down in silence. After a while, he suddenly stood up and walked over to the girl. Here, this is your magic communicator. I'll get back to you. Lucian gave the magic communicator that the girl had given him back. Oh, thank you. The girl casually replied before asking in a curious voice, Right, what is your name? Being able to keep the magic communicator undisturbed in that situation and maintain communication, it seems like your magic communicator skills aren't bad. Hearing the girl's praise, the surrounding students revealed looks of envy. This girl had a deep background, so if they could gain her favor, perhaps they would have a good chance. However, Lucian looked at the girl for a while before taking a deep breath. He shook his head and coldly said, Why did you play with us? When this was said, there was an uproar in the magic airship. The other students looked at Lucian in surprise. What was wrong with this fellow? He actually dared to criticize this girl like this. Could it be that he didn't know that the other side's identity wasn't normal? I play with you? The girl had no expression, but her tone was very relaxed. It was like she didn't care about Lucian's criticism at all. Rather, there was a trace of a smile in her voice. Lucian pointed at the magic communicator in the girl's hand. It was you who told me the high-frequency resonance value of the magic elements in the area, so I could change the frequency of the magic signal sent out by the magic communicator. It wouldn't be affected by the magic space outside, and it would be sent out. And I told you. What about it? Since you know this value and you know that you can solve the problem of the magic signal interference with this value, then with your abilities, you can use this value to solve the problem of the magic signal interference. Then with your abilities, I'm certain that you can solve this problem yourself. Moreover, you can solve it faster and better than me. Why don't you do it yourself? Chapter 11:55. The other students who were observing the interior of the magic airship all turned to look at the girl. If what Lucian said was true, then this girl had let them stay in a dangerous environment for a while for no reason. Why did she do this? That's right, I can do it. The girl didn't hide anything and openly admitted it. Then why did you put me in charge? Lucian kept asking. Because you said you could try, so I let you try. The girl gave a shrug as she spoke in a relaxed voice. Lucian was completely enraged by the girl's uncaring attitude. Then what if I couldn't do it? Wouldn't that mean that we had to stay in that dangerous environment for a bit longer? If an accident happened, it might have killed someone. The girl seemed to be surprised that Lucian would really get angry. She blinked her eyes, looked him up and down, and laughed softly. You really are an interesting young man. What if you couldn't do it? It's very simple. Then I'll be in charge of sending the signal out. As for the accident you mentioned, the girl pointed at the people in the magic airship. Isn't everyone safe now? Seeing that he had already pointed out the problem and the girl still didn't care, Lucian was even more angry. Now is now, but what if an accident happened just now? How can you guarantee everyone's safety? The surrounding students saw the angry Lucian and felt that this was bad. There were two male students who came over to pull Lucian away. Hey, what are you doing, kid? We were all saved by her. What kind of attitude is this? Right, if it wasn't for her, we might not have been able to come out. How can you be like this? Lucian threw off the two of them. Although he didn't say anything else, he still angrily glared at the girl, clearly not convinced in his heart. The surrounding students nervously looked at Lucian and the girl. They were very clear that they had been saved because of this girl, and this girl had a strong background. If they offended her because of Lucian's words, they might not have a good ending. The girl glanced at the angry Lucian and slowly nodded. Well, I didn't have to explain it to you. However, this operation was originally my willfulness, so I have a certain amount of responsibility. Yes, I do have the ability to send out a distress signal immediately so that Uncle Harris can find me as soon as possible and rescue you. The girl then pointed at Lucian. But since you've shown that you have the ability to solve the problem of the transmission of magical signals, I'm certainly willing to give you a chance to try. As for the possibility of an accident, perhaps you won't believe me, but I have the ability to ensure the safety of all of you by myself. There won't be any accidents. To be honest, I was very surprised that you were able to solve the magic signal problem so quickly. I originally thought that you would take a long time or that you wouldn't be able to solve this problem at all. That way, I would be able to properly display my skills. If I really have to say it, I would rather blame you for having an ability that is beyond my imagination. Everyone looked at the girl strangely. It wasn't a problem that she was confident in herself, but why was she confident that she could protect the safety of all of them by herself? It had to be known that there was a high chance that it was the nest of those human traffickers. Just based on what they had seen before, there were already 3 magic chariots, so it could be seen that her strength wasn't normal. But thinking about how the girl had easily taken care of 2 magic chariots by herself and scared away the remaining magic chariot, displaying a shocking strength, everyone had no choice but to believe that she was telling the truth. Regarding this, even Lucian couldn't refute it, so he could only remain silent. The girl paused before saying, "As for why I chose you to solve the problem of the transmission of magical signals, it was actually because of what Father taught me. Father often told me that I have to give others a chance to display their abilities. Only then can I find more talents and discover the abilities of those people that I normally wouldn't notice. Look, now that I've seen what happened, I've found that you have an ability that far surpasses your peers in terms of magical communication. Right? You said that you were a student of Philip Academy, So you aren't in the academy right now, and were taken away by those people. I think it's because you want to find a job, right? When the girl suddenly changed the topic to this, everyone was stunned. Lucian nodded in a daze. Yes, because I went to Doral City to find a job. I was deceived and kidnapped here. And very good. I feel that with the ability you just displayed, you have the chance to apply for a job as a research assistant in the Magic Communication Research Department of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Are you interested? Lucian and the other students all looked at the girl in surprise. She actually said that Lucian had the ability to apply for a job at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Although it was just applying for a job as a research assistant in the Magic Communication Research Department, this was something that normal students like them could never imagine. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. That was the holy land in the hearts of students who studied magical theory. If they could enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, it could be said that they had realized their life's ultimate dream. But how could she say this kind of big talk? Even if her background was deep, how could she put someone into the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce? That place was famous for having strict requirements. No matter what kind of relationship it had, it wouldn't work. If you're interested, I can give you a recommendation. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce will have an annual open recruitment next month. You can use this recommendation to apply for the job. Of course, this recommendation can only help you enter the second round. As for whether you can enter the Academy of Magic as a research assistant, that will depend on your ability. The girl then said. Everyone was stunned again. The girl was actually telling the truth. She actually had a recommendation from the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Heavens above! Although this recommendation couldn't let someone directly enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, but with this recommendation, you could directly enter the second round, saving a lot of time and effort. Because of this recommendation, you would receive special attention, and the success rate of your application would undoubtedly be much higher than normal applicants. No one thought that when Lucian had just rudely criticized this girl, not only did she not mind, she even gave him such a huge benefit. For Lucian, this was like a piece of cake falling from the sky. Under the envious gazes of everyone, Lucian's expression was a little excited at first, but after a while, he became hesitant. His expression struggled several times, but in the end, he sighed and lightly shook his head. No, I can't accept your charity. With my current ability, I'm afraid I'm not worthy of the new flyer. Everyone was in an uproar. This idiot, such a good thing clearly fell on his head, and he actually rejected it. What was he thinking in that head of his? Only that male student named Tansun looked at Lucian with wide eyes, but there was a trace of admiration in his eyes. The girl was also a bit surprised by Lucian's reaction. After being stunned for a bit, her voice became cold for the first time. You think this is charity? If your pride is this weak, then I really don't think you're suited to enter the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. His father had once said that only those with a strong heart would possess truly powerful abilities. You don't have this qualification right now. After saying this, the girl seemed to have lost interest in talking. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the seat, pretending to sleep. The other students all looked at Lucian with different expressions, but no one said a thing. Lucian's expression changed several times before he finally sat down and lowered his head, clearly not planning on speaking. For a while, the cabin of the magic airship fell into an awkward silence. After a while, this silence was broken by the sound of flowing water. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound in a daze. They saw the girl with her eyes closed take out the small and exquisite magic communicator that Lucian had just given her and press the answer button. Hello, Uncle Harris. I'm still waiting up there. You taking care of it? Are some of the people who were caught injured? No one died. It's good that no one died. Let the Canla Empire have a headache over the rest. Our mission is already over. As for the background of those human traffickers, let Lord Father have a headache. It's not up to me to care about right now. All right, I'll be back in a bit. Relax. I promise I won't sneak away this time. Did you forget? Aunt Agnes is about to celebrate her birthday. Although she's already celebrated her 100 birthdays, she still needs to celebrate. Everyone heard the girl's relaxed tone from before, talking to Uncle Harris on the other side of the magic communicator for a while, and the doubt in their hearts deepened. The Aunt Agnes she mentioned had already celebrated her 100 birthdays. Didn't that mean that she was already over 100 years old? To be called an aunt at this age. This was too strange. But this girl's mysteries weren't just this. No matter how strange it was, everyone didn't find it strange. After a while, she ended her conversation with Uncle Harris. After hanging up, she looked over the students and said, "This magic airship will bring you to the nearest city. There will be officials from your Canla Empire there to take care of your matters. There's nothing for me to do. So, we'll be saying our goodbyes here." That's right. The girl clapped her hands, reached into her pocket, and took out something. She walked up to Lucian, grabbed one of his hands, and slapped the thing into his palm. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's job fair will be held on the 15th of next month. If you're interested, you could take this to participate. With this, you can obtain the recommendation I promised. Lucian wanted to speak, but the girl glared at him. Even if you want to throw it away, you have to get off the magic airship before throwing it away. Lucian opened his mouth and could only give a sigh. He didn't even look at what the little thing in his palm was as he stuffed it into his pocket. The other students looked at Lucian's pocket with envious gazes. They really hoped that they could obtain this precious recommendation. All right. The girl clapped her hands again and attracted everyone's attention before waving her hand at them. I should go. Pay attention to your safety in the future. Don't be tricked again. Goodbye. After throwing down these words, the girl's figure suddenly disappeared. Everyone was surprised. This was clearly spatial magic. This girl's strength was indeed mysterious and unfathomable. Chapter 1156. That afternoon, Little Duke Windsor's assistant came to the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's branch office in Doral City and raised the Lord Duke's request for a magic monitoring system. The New Moon Chamber of Commerce attached great importance to this and immediately said that they would design a magic monitoring system for Little Duke Windsor's request as soon as possible. They also said that because this was the request of the Lord Duke, the New Moon Chamber of Commerce would give Little Duke Windsor special treatment. They would give the first magic monitoring system a free trial, which was equal to giving Little Duke Windsor a free trial. The advisor was very satisfied with this and expressed his thanks on behalf of Little Duke Windsor. Then he tactfully mentioned that his wife liked the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's new Magic Illusion series. So he received a set of magic illusion modules from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce for free, as well as a new small magic projector for home use. Only then did he leave. When he left, the person in charge of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's branch in Doral City contacted the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters that was 2,300 kilometers away. With the magic communication network that covered all the countries and empires in the southwest corner of the continent. Even if they were 2,300 kilometers apart, they could communicate with each other that they didn't dare think of before. They could even use the new magic communication devices with magic illusions to communicate face-to-face, so naturally it was very convenient and fast. The person in charge of the Doral City branch clearly conveyed the request from the Canla Empire's Southern Governor's Manor, and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters immediately began to move. The next day, there was an order for a magic illusion projector for the magic monitoring system that came to New Flyer. The Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's Magic Illusion Research Department immediately began to research it. At the same time, the staff of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's Doral City branch had already arrived at the Governor's Manor's designated place to test the magic monitoring system in Doral City. 2 days later, the detailed data was sent to the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's headquarters and the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. 4 days later, the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's Magic Illusion Research Department finished the research. A week later, the first set of products left the New Flyer Magic Illusion Projector production line. According to the special request of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, this finished product wasn't transported by land like the other products. Rather, it was placed in the special magic airship pipeline between Shinfei City and Doral City. It arrived at the magic airship base outside Doral City that night and met up with the engineers from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce headquarters, who had also arrived on the same magic airship. After a night, which was the morning of the 8th day after Little Duke Windsor's request, the staff of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce had already finished setting up the equipment at the designated location in Doral City. Right after noon, Little Duke Windsor, who received the news, came to the control room to prepare for the final inspection. "Lord Duke, look, this is the real-time image of the west gate of Doral." The New Moon Chamber of Commerce's engineer pointed at the illusion in front of him and explained it to Little Duke Windsor. "Through these real-time images, we can observe everything that happens in this area at any time. Even if you miss it, there's still this thing." He then pointed at a black box on the side. "This will store an entire day's worth of magic illusion data. If you don't know what happened here the day before, you can use any magic illusion projector to play the video stored in the illusion module, so you can clearly see what happened the day before." "It's this amazing?" Little Duke Windsor looked at the normal-looking black box in surprise and rubbed his chin to think. This is a very good function. Even if I send someone to guard this place, it's impossible for them to maintain a high level of concentration at all times, so there will be mistakes. With this recording function, it's much more convenient. But I have a question." "Sir Duke, please ask." "This thing can only store a day's worth of footage. Isn't that a bit too short? What if I want to investigate what happened 2 days ago, or even several days ago? Wouldn't it be useless?" Little Duke Windsor asked. The New Moon Chamber of Commerce's engineer revealed an awkward look. "My Lord Duke, due to the limitations of the current technology, there is no way to store more than 30 hours of magic illusion data in a standard fantasy module for the time being. Therefore, for the sake of safety, we have set it to a full day, which is 24 hours. It's like this. That means it can't be longer?" "It's not that it can't be longer," someone on the side suddenly said. This person was an engineer sent by the new flyer to provide technical support. Now that they were discussing the problem of magic illusion storage, naturally, it was time for him to take action. "We can place one or more standard illusion modules in the magic illusion storage box, forming a small module group. This can increase the storage capacity of the magic illusion storage and increase the recording time. Then can it be extended to 10? "No, 10 days is a bit too long. How about a week? Little Duke Windsor asked. "There's no problem from a technical point of view." The new flyer engineer replied with a nod. "But Sir Duke, with each additional standard illusion module group, the technical requirements will increase, and naturally the cost will increase, so..." Little Duke Windsor looked back at the staff member in charge of this matter. "How much does this cost?" The New Moon Chamber of Commerce's current price is 2,400 gold coins per set. Little Duke Windsor knit his brows. "It really isn't cheap. Then what if we increase the recording time to a week? How much will it cost?" Everyone's eyes fell onto the Frestech Chamber of Commerce's engineer. The new flyer engineer looked at the person in charge of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, and after thinking about it, he replied, "We haven't tested this before, but we estimate that the cost will increase by at least 40%. Then it'll be over 3,000 gold coins per set." Little Duke Windsor took a cold breath before asking, "If this thing can be used to monitor the entire process, how many sets would it take?" "There's no accurate data for now, but based on the size of Doral City, it should be around 100 to 150 sets. This means that it will cost a total of 300,000 or even 400,000 gold coins." Little Duke Windsor couldn't help revealing a pained expression as he turned to look at Doral City's city, Lord Count Opera beside him. Count Opera's heart was bleeding, but he had a righteous expression on his face. "Lord Duke, in order to increase the security of Doral City and ensure the prosperity of Doral City, this expenditure is completely worth it. Is that so?" Little Duke Windsor narrowed his eyes as he asked this. This time, Count Opera did not look back immediately. Instead, he turned to look at the magic illusion that clearly showed the scene near the west gate of Doral. He hesitated. Of course, he knew that if this thing could be set up, it would be of great help to Doral City. However, He couldn't help but feel the pinch when he had to spend hundreds of thousands of gold coins from the revenue of Doral City on this. After hesitating for a bit, he looked at the person in charge of the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. Can we still discuss the price? Look, an official from the Doral City, Lord Manor, suddenly shouted out, cutting off Count Opera's words. Count Opera glared at him in dissatisfaction. Just as he was about to reprimand him, he saw that everyone's eyes were focused on the magic illusion, so he hurriedly shifted his gaze. When he saw the magic illusion, his eyes suddenly popped out, and he revealed a look of incomparable shock. The magic illusion clearly showed that in a remote corner to the left of the west gate, there was a medium-sized young man who was slowly pulling out a dagger from the waist of another man. This was clearly a serious case of assault. Count Opera was still in a daze, but little Duke Windsor had already reacted and angrily glared at Count Opera. "What are you looking at? Why aren't you grabbing that fellow from me?" Count Opera's body trembled before he reacted. He quickly ordered the two guards behind him, "Grab that fellow, grab him. Quick, go and catch that guy. If you let him escape after seeing his face, don't ever come to see me again." His two personal bodyguards ran out quickly. Everyone's eyes fell onto the magic illusion again, focusing on the young man who had injured the other person. It was obvious that this was not the first time the young man had hurt someone. There was no panic on his face at all. After wiping the knife clean on the clothes of the person he had stabbed, he casually stuffed it into his clothes and walked out leisurely. However, before he could take more than a few steps, the two bodyguards who had just left led a group of city guard from the west gate to surround him. Under the encirclement of so many people, it was naturally impossible for him to have any ability to resist, and he was quickly captured. Seeing that the young man had been captured, Count Opera let out a sigh of relief before he couldn't help giving a cold snort. Such courage! In broad daylight, he actually dares to kill someone on the street. See if I don't teach him a lesson later. Today, in front of the Lord Governor and the representatives of the New Flyer and the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, such a bad thing had happened in Doral City. It really made him lose face as the city lord. It could be imagined that the young man who had done this would have a very pitiful ending. "Lord City Lord, what did you want to say before?" The person in charge of the New Moon Chamber of Commerce suddenly asked this with a smile. Count Opera carefully looked at little Duke Windsor before revealing a righteous appearance. "Nothing, I just wanted to ask, how long would it take to set up this kind of magic detection system in Doral City?" Chapter 11:57. 3 days later, the news of Doral City's City Lord Manor ordering 100 magic monitoring systems from the New Moon Chamber of Commerce appeared in the major newspapers of the Canla Empire. When they first saw this news, almost everyone was a bit confused. Magic monitoring system? What was this? Why did the newspapers say that this was the Southern Province's Governor Manor and Doral City's response to the kidnapping that happened before? After seeing the explanation of the magic monitoring system in the newspapers, people gradually understood. So it was like this. With this thing, the entire Doral City would be tightly monitored, making it hard for crimes to hide. Naturally, it would be hard for similar kidnappings to happen again. Even if it did happen, it would be easy to trace through this system. No matter how one looked at it, this system would have a very good deterrent effect on crimes. Of course, not everyone was in favor of this. Once this news was reported, there were many newspapers that published the views of another group of people. They said that the appearance of this magic monitoring system would make people lose their privacy, which went against the most basic morals of humans. However, there were people who immediately refuted this. If you don't do bad things, why do you have to worry about this magic monitoring system? Then again, the Doral City Lord Manor had already stated that this system was only used to monitor the public areas of Doral City. It didn't include private residences. So other people didn't need to worry about their privacy being violated. If you feel offended like this, you should first reflect on whether you have a guilty conscience. The debate between the two sides quickly escalated in the major newspapers and quickly became one of the hottest topics in the Canla Empire. Thanks to this heated discussion, the concept of the magic monitoring system quickly spread throughout the Canla Empire and even many countries outside the Canla Empire. After the Doral City Lord Manor placed an order for 100 magic monitoring systems with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. Not long after, there were more than 10 cities in the Kanla Empire that placed orders with a new Moon Chamber of Commerce for magic monitoring systems. These orders added up to over 1,000 sets of magic monitoring systems, which amounted to over 2 million gold coins. Even for the new Moon Chamber of Commerce that had expanded the magic entertainment industry to countless countries on the continent, this was considered a large order. So after receiving this order, the new Moon Chamber of Commerce became even busier. The new Moon Chamber of Commerce had even added a magic surveillance video department to deal with this business. But for the Frestech Chamber of Commerce that was also involved, this order didn't affect them that much. New Flyer was just a small research group from the magic researchers, specializing in researching the different needs of the magic monitoring system. There was also a magic projector production line that was used to produce the various magic projectors for the magic monitoring system. For New Flyer, which had already grown into a behemoth, there was no need for them to pay too much attention to a mere business that didn't even touch the edges of their core business. Compared to this, the annual job fair was the most important thing for the Frestech Chamber of Commerce. Hashtag on the 17th of July, the day before the New Flyer's annual open job fair, Lucian jumped out of a long-distance magic car. When he looked up, his eyes lit up. The city in front of him was different from any other city he had seen in his life. There were tall buildings that could be seen everywhere. There were wide and crisscrossing roads. There were street lights and signal lights all around. There were all kinds of magic sedans on the roads. And there were all kinds of people wearing different kinds of clothes on the sides of the roads. Although this could be seen in the other large cities of the Kanla Empire, it was far from being like the city in front of him. It was already normal. Lucian was in a daze for a while, before slowly coming back to his senses. He couldn't help taking a deep breath. It was no wonder countless people said that only by coming to Shinfei City could one truly experience the charm of the new era. That wasn't wrong at all. With just a single look, Lucian felt like he had come to a new world. Even the air he breathed seemed like it came from another world. Even if he had seen all kinds of descriptions and images of Shinfei City in the magic illusions countless times, only after personally coming to this city did he realize how different this city was. How modern. Just looking at the huge screen of the fantasy projector that covered the entire wall of the building across the street, Lucian felt a little dizzy. Such a giant screen, it was even several times bigger than the one he saw outside Doral City. It looked incomparably magnificent and shocked his heart. As if it was responding to Lucian's thoughts, the magic illusions playing on the giant screen suddenly turned into a figure that he was very familiar with. Young Miss Renoya. Renoya, who appeared on the screen, was as tall as the building, but she was still incomparably beautiful. Her smile was sweet, her aura was pure, and her every move was filled with an intoxicating aura. Lucian stared in a daze for a long time, and only came back to his senses after Renoya's figure disappeared. Perhaps because the job fair was going to be held in 2 days, the New Flyers coach station had clearly marked the directions to the location of the job fair. Lucian followed the directions and asked a few more times. After changing buses twice, he easily arrived at the job fair's special base located not far from Shinfei City. This place was originally a large stadium outside Shinfei City. It covered an area of more than 10 hectares and could be said to be extremely large. However, even such a large place was crowded with people at this time, and there was almost no room for movement. As far as the eye could see, there were young people about Lucian's age everywhere. Of course, many of them were much older, and there were even white-haired old people. These people were obviously here for the job fair, and their purpose was naturally to apply successfully and become official employees of New Flyer. For the people of the Signs Continent, being able to work for the Frestech Chamber of Commerce was a matter of great honor. New Flyer's salary might not be the highest in the entire continent, but the status was extremely high. If one was an official employee of New Flyer, it was something worth bragging about in any small place. And if one could become a researcher of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, they would become a powerful figure that countless people worshipped. In some small countries, any researcher of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce could become an honored guest of His Majesty the King. Even in the two empires, researchers of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce were highly valued, and their treatment was no worse than that of most nobles. Therefore, New Flyer's annual job fair, especially the Academy of Magic's public recruitment, always attracted the participation of countless people from all over the continent. Every year at this time, students like Lucian, who had just graduated from various magic industry academies, would come here to try their luck. If one could be accepted by the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, that would be equivalent to soaring to the heavens. Lucian looked at the dense crowd around him and felt a bit nervous. He'd heard that the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce was recruiting less than 50 people this year, and there were at least 10,000 people here for these 50 positions. With his ability, would he be able to stand out among these 10,000 people? Thinking of this, Lucian reached into his pocket and felt a small, flat, and round object with very intricate patterns on it. His heart calmed down slightly. This little toy was something that the mysterious girl had forced on him, saying that it was her keepsake. The mysterious girl had said that as long as Lucian had this keepsake, he would be able to receive a special recommendation for the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce's job fair and directly enter the second round of the test. At that time, Lucian had been very dissatisfied with the girl's attitude and had even wanted to reject the girl's good intentions. Later, after they had separated, Lucian had calmed down again, and when he recalled his reaction at that time, he felt incomparably ashamed. The two companions who had pulled him back at that time were right. No matter what, it was that girl who had saved them from danger. If it hadn't been for her, they might have been sold to some damned place by those human traffickers, and from then on they would have lived an abnormally miserable life. Therefore, from this point of view, even if the girl's attitude was not honest enough, no matter how bad her attitude was, Lucian had no right to be angry with her. Moreover, not only did the girl not mind Lucian's unreasonable behavior, she even looked at him favorably because of the pitiful bit of talent he had shown, and especially gave him this keepsake and an extremely valuable recommendation. How shameful! Lucian sighed inwardly. Lucian sighed inwardly. He squeezed through the crowd with difficulty and arrived at the registration area. After filling out an application form according to the instructions of the New Flyer staff, Lucian hesitated for a moment and then took out the little toy that the mysterious girl had given him from his pocket. He had thought that since the mysterious girl had said that he could come with a keepsake, he didn't need to explain what it was. With a circle of people watching, Lucian was embarrassed to say that he could get a special recommendation with this keepsake. However, the New Flyer staff in charge of the registration looked at the delicate little toy in Lucian's hand with a baffled expression and blinked. "Excuse me, what do you mean by letting me see this thing?" Chapter 1158. Looking at the puzzled expression on the staff's face, Lucian only felt a hint of bitterness in his mouth. Could it be that the mysterious girl was actually lying to him? She actually didn't have the authority to give him a special recommendation? But on second thought, this was only natural. No matter how strong the mysterious girl's background was, how could she have the ability to give him a special recommendation for the New Flyer job fair? This didn't make sense at all. Besides, why would the girl value him? Thinking of this, Lucian bitterly smiled. He sighed, shook his head, and was about to put away the gadget. Although the special recommendation he expected was gone, he finally came here and couldn't just go back like this. Even if it was difficult to succeed, he still had to give it a try. "It's nothing, Lucian said as he was about to put the gadget in his pocket. Before his hand could reach in, he suddenly felt his wrist being grabbed by someone. Lucian turned his head in shock and saw a middle-aged man with a dignified face staring at his right hand. "Young man, let me see what you're holding in your hand, okay?" the middle-aged man asked. Lucian looked at him, baffled. Just as he was about to shake his head, the New Flyer staff member who received Lucian suddenly stood up and respectfully bowed to the middle-aged man. "Manager Holly, are you here to inspect our work again?" The middle-aged man, called Manager Holly, waved his hand. "Do your work? I'm just here to look." Then, he pulled Lucian's hand out of his pocket and pointed at his right hand. Lucian's heart skipped a beat. He opened his palm and showed the gadget in his hand. Manager Holly took a look, and his eyes suddenly shrank. Then, he scanned Lucian up and down several times. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and then he waved at Lucian. "Come with me, let's talk somewhere else." A group of people who also came to apply watched Lucian and Manager Holly leave together. Some were puzzled, some were envious. A few minutes later, Lucian was led by Manager Holly into a room below the stadium. "Sit." Manager Holly pointed at a seat and motioned for Lucian to sit down. Then he extended his hand to him. "Can you let me have a good look at that little toy?" Lucian hesitated for a moment before handing the gadget to Manager Holly. Manager Holly flipped the gadget over and over for a while before asking, "How did you get this?" Lucian pondered for a moment, and then told him about his encounter with the mysterious girl last month. After hearing this, Manager Holly was silent for a moment and nodded lightly. "That's right, it did happen last month. So, Miss wants you to sign up with the token and promise to give you a special recommendation?" "Yes, that's what she said." Lucian couldn't help but feel excited when he heard Manager Holly's words. He looked at Manager Holly expectantly. Manager Holly looked at Lucian again. "Since it was Mrs. Recommendation, then your ability must have attracted her attention. Well, since Miss only said to give you a special recommendation, I won't do anything extra." Manager Holly took out a magic communicator from his pocket and said a few words in front of Lucian. "All right, I've already given the order. Go to the registration office now. They will arrange it. As for this thing," Manager Holly looked at the gadget in his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then returned it to Lucian. "Since it's a gift from Miss, then keep it. I hope you can cherish it and take good care of it." Speaking of this, Manager Holly's always dignified face showed a trace of a smile. "Young man, you're very lucky. People who can be valued by Miss generally have a bright future. I hope you can grasp this opportunity." Lucian looked at the deep smile on Manager Holly's face, and a trace of doubt appeared in his heart. It was fine that Harris called the mysterious girl Miss, but why did Manager Holly also call her Miss? Was there a connection between the two? After saying goodbye to Manager Holly, Lucian returned to the registration office. Sure enough, this time, the new Flyer staff member's attitude towards Lucian became more enthusiastic. He personally helped him complete all the registration forms, and finally pulled him aside to give him some simple instructions in private. "Lucian, Mister, because you're a special talent with a special recommendation, you don't need to go through the preliminary test. You can directly enter the second test the day after tomorrow." About the second test. "Wait a minute," Lucian interrupted him. "Can I participate in the preliminary test together?" The staff member was taken aback. "But you have a recommendation. You don't need to participate in the preliminary test." "It's nothing, I just want to test my ability," Lucian said. The staff member frowned and looked at Lucian in confusion. "If you insist on participating in the preliminary test, it's not impossible. But this way, your special recommendation will be wasted. If you can't pass the preliminary test, of course, I'm only talking about this possibility, then you still can't participate in the second test." "I understand. If I can't even pass the preliminary test, then even if I can directly participate in the second test, there's no point, right? This also means that I'm not worthy of this special recommendation." Lucian nodded. Seeing the affirmative expression on Lucian's face, the staff member nodded helplessly. "Okay, if you insist on doing this, I'll arrange it for you." "Okay, sorry to trouble you." After confirming a few more details of the job fair with the staff, Lucian left the venue. The preliminary test would officially start tomorrow. There was no point in him staying here. It was more important to take advantage of the fact that it was still early to find a place to stay for the night. Frestec City was known as the most modern and most prosperous city on the Signs continent. There was nothing that could compare to it. In terms of accommodation, there were luxurious hotels that reached into the clouds everywhere. Just outside the city, near the stadium, one could see 3 hotel buildings at a glance. Each of them had their own characteristics and were extremely magnificent. However, Lucian only glanced at the three buildings with an envious gaze before he obediently went to a more remote place to look for it. He couldn't afford to stay in those luxury hotels. A small hotel in a remote place was his true home. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. The preliminary test of the second day of the job fair was relatively uneventful for Lucian. He studied magic communication at Philip Academy, so the position he applied for this time was the one that the mysterious girl mentioned before. It was the lowest level research assistant in the Magic Communication Research Department of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. The questions of the preliminary test weren't that difficult for a top student of Philip Academy like him. Although some of the questions were more practical and more professional than what he learned in the academy, relying on a solid foundation, he was still able to answer them easily. New Flyer's work efficiency was very fast. After the preliminary test was finished in the morning, the results were announced in the afternoon. Not surprisingly, Lucian appeared on the list of those who passed the preliminary test and was at the front. This was of course something to be happy about for Lucian, but for most of the applicants who failed, it was undoubtedly a nightmare. After the results were announced, there were countless people who became abnormally depressed. There were even many people who burst into tears. Seeing this scene, Lucian couldn't help but feel emotional. If he also failed the preliminary test, even if he didn't cry on the spot, he would still be very disappointed. Losing the chance to join the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was a large blow to him. If it was said that he didn't have confidence in joining New Flyer before, then after meeting the mysterious girl and receiving her praise, he was inexplicably filled with confidence in himself. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the courage to apply for the job here. After announcing the results of the preliminary test, Manager Holly specially found Lucian and congratulated him. This action made Lucian even more curious. Manager Holly clearly had a high position in New Flyer, but he took special care of a country bumpkin like him. It was clearly because of the token that the mysterious girl gave him. Then who was that mysterious girl? Manager Holly didn't answer Lucian's doubts. He only told him that since the young miss didn't reveal her identity, then she must have her reasons. It wasn't convenient for him to reveal them. If Lucian really wanted to know, it would be best if he had the opportunity to ask her face to face when he saw her again. Lucian could only helplessly accept this. It seemed like this riddle could only be revealed when he saw the mysterious girl again. But thinking that the mysterious girl must have a very special identity, Lucian felt that it would be very difficult for him to have the opportunity to meet her again. In the end, the two of them were people from two different worlds. Just like the goddess in his heart, Miss Lenore, if nothing unexpected happened, it would be very difficult for them to have any interactions in this life. What happened last month? To Lucian, it was better to treat it as a dream. The pace of the New Flyers job fair was very tight. After the preliminary test ended, there was only a day of rest before the second test began. Compared to the 30,000 people who applied for the first test, the number of people who applied for the second test decreased by a lot because of the preliminary test. It was said that the total number of people was less than 3,000, and the passing rate was less than a tenth. And among these 3,000 people, there were more than 200 people who applied for the Magic Communication Department of the New Flyer Magic Research Institute. 200 people applying for a mere 3 positions. It could be imagined how difficult it was. Lucian didn't have much confidence in passing the second test, but since he had already come this far, he naturally couldn't shrink back. However, when he and the other 200 or so people entered the second round examination venue uneasily, they saw a completely unexpected person. Chapter 1159. Gods above, isn't that Master Akali? It's true. It really is Master Akali. Why is she here? Idiot. Master Akali is the manager of the Magic Communication Department. What's so strange about her being here? That's not right. Hasn't Master Akali been working with the dragons on the Hyperspace Communication Network all these years? Why would she be here? Perhaps she's here to test us? What a joke. How could we need Master Akali to personally take care of our exam? That's right. Lucian didn't listen to the discussions around him at all. He was completely focused on the person who suddenly came out of the backstage. It really was Master Akali. In a sense, Master Akali was the same as Miss Lenore. They were both idols in Lucian's heart. However, the meaning of this idol was completely different from Lenore's idol. Lucian loved and admired Lenore, but he worshipped Master Akali. Master Akali was the person who created the magic communication network and laid the foundation for modern magic communication. She was an important figure who stood at the peak of this era. Before her, the people of Signs could only rely on manpower to communicate with people in other places. But after Master Akali and New Flyer built the magic communication network that covered all of Signs, people could instantly transmit information to places hundreds of kilometers away or even thousands of kilometers away. Compared to before, the current communication method allowed people to enter a whole new world. It was because of the comprehensive application of the magic communication network that the Signs ushered in an era of information explosion in recent years. People no longer had to be like before, cooped up in their hometowns for the rest of their lives, unable to receive any information from the outside world. The current people only needed to sit at home to know what was happening on the Signs continent. They could even communicate with people who were thousands of kilometers away without any hindrance. This magical method of communication that people in Signs could never imagine before could be popularized in most Signs over the years. Apart from the unremitting efforts of New Flyer and these countries, of course, it couldn't be separated from Master Akali's important role in this. Moreover, it was said that Master Akali had been researching the problem of magic signal transmission in recent years, trying to break through the current limit of magic signal transmission and achieve the ideal of infinite distance transmission. If this technological breakthrough could be achieved, it meant that people could directly communicate with a magic cloud continent tens of thousands of kilometers away in the future. Of course, this was the main reason why Master Akali and New Flyer were so focused on researching this technology transmission. The Frestac Chamber of Commerce and many other countries have been developing the Demon Cloud continent and the other newly discovered continents. So if they could use long-distance communication, it would be countless times more convenient. Lucian excitedly looked at Master Akali walking onto the stage, and his heart couldn't calm down at all. Even if he couldn't pass the second test, it was worth it just to be able to see Master Akali in person. Akali, who was standing on the stage, heard the enthusiastic discussion of the audience. She glanced around and saw the excited expression on everyone's face. She couldn't help but laugh. Although she was already a middle-aged woman in her 50s because she had been receiving help from the elves and her own magic strength was strong enough, her face didn't look much different from a young woman in her 30s. This smile still showed some of the playfulness of the past. Everyone be quiet. Akali raised her hand and spoke in a loud voice. The audience quickly quieted down, and everyone's eyes were focused on her. I know that you are surprised by my appearance here. Akali revealed a faint smile before continuing. That's right. In a normal situation, I wouldn't come here myself because this isn't something I should be responsible for. But this time, the situation is special. I need to recruit research assistants, so I came here myself. The audience was in an uproar. Master Akali needed to recruit a group of research assistants, and from the looks of it, she was going to recruit from their group? God above. This was simply a cake that fell from the sky. Everyone looked at Akali with shining eyes, wishing that they could all run in front of her and recommend themselves. Lucian also felt his heart beating faster, and his eyes were full of expectation as he looked at Akali on the stage. If he could be chosen by Master Akali, even if he died now, it would be worth it. No, of course he couldn't die. He still had to stay by Master Akali's side and do his best to study the magic communication network. Akali had to raise her hands again, indicating that everyone should be quiet again. Originally, the magic communication department had prepared a batch of exam questions for the second test, but because of my special request, I prepared another batch of questions for you. If you can pass the test, you will be qualified to become my research assistant. If you can't pass, you can try the batch of exam questions that were prepared for you before. If you can pass, you will also have the opportunity to become a researcher or research assistant in our department. This explanation was very clear, but it still made everyone a little confused. According to Master Akali's words, didn't it mean that her requirements for her research assistants were different from the requirements of the Magic Communication Department of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce? All right, now our staff will distribute the questions that I have prepared for you and take you through the assessment. For those who pass, I will have an interview with you. Akali clapped her hands, and two staff members of the new flyer, who were already prepared, held the thick written test papers and handed them out one by one. Lucian took a breath and was about to refocus his mind and concentrate on the test when he suddenly heard Akali on the stage speak again. "Is there a man named Lucian among you?" he asked. "Where is he?" Lucian was startled and looked up in amazement, only to see Akali's gaze sweep over. "It's me. Master Akali, did you call me?" Lucian pointed at himself in confusion. The rest of the candidates for the second test looked at Lucian in unison, their faces full of surprise. "You're Lucian?" Akali asked, but turned her head to look at the person behind her. After getting confirmation from that person, she nodded at Lucian and said, "Take the test well." Then she turned and left. Lucian was stunned. The other candidates all looked at Lucian in surprise, their expressions full of doubt, envy, and jealousy. "Master Akali knows me? How is that possible?" After a while, when the test paper was handed to him, Lucian was still a loss. After receiving the test paper and being in a daze for a while, he gradually came to his senses. "Forget it. Take the test well first. Don't think about those messy things." Lucian patted his face to wake himself up and focus his attention on the test paper in front of him. Lucian had originally thought that Master Akali, as the most powerful person in the field of magical communication networks on signs, would have specially prepared the test questions to be extremely difficult. But when he really did the test questions, he found that these questions did not involve too much theoretical knowledge. Instead, they focused more on the most basic theories. Although the requirements were very detailed, the difficulty was not particularly high. The only thing that was special was that these questions involved many aspects of practical application. If one did not have a certain foundation in practical experience, it would be very difficult to complete them. Fortunately, when Lucian was studying at Philip Academy, in order to reduce the burden on his parents and to improve his living environment, as well as to strengthen his practical ability, he often took the initiative to look for short-term jobs in setting up magical communication networks. He was very experienced in this field. Therefore, these questions might be very troublesome for the average student, but for Lucian, they were considered easy. After the written test was over, the staff of the new flyer quickly prepared for the practical test. In the previous test, there weren't that many people who were eliminated, but in the second stage of the practical test, the difference in practical ability was quickly revealed, so the number of people who were eliminated quickly increased. After the written test, there were over 100 people left, but after the practical test, including Lucian, there were less than 20 people left. The rest of you, come with me to see Manager Akali. Manager Akali will personally interview you, and if the manager is satisfied, you can stay. A staff member of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce led the 20 of them into a large passenger magic car that had clearly been prepared beforehand. This large passenger magic car drove away from the exam site and headed west, heading to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main base on the west side of Frestec City. Lucian looked at the factories outside the window, and his heart was filled with excitement. Although he had seen the new flyer headquarters countless times in the Magic Illusion, this was his first time seeing it with his own eyes and entering it. This place was incomparably mysterious and sacred to the countless people of the signs. Because this was the headquarters of the new flyer, it was known as the birthplace of the magic machine industry on the continent. It was also known as the heart of the signs. Every action here could affect the situation of the entire continent. Lucian looked at the slightly old factories outside, but his heart was filled with respect. The magic machine industry that covered the continent and changed the entire continent had developed bit by bit from here. Looking at them, it was like seeing the history that made one's blood boil. But Lucian didn't spend that much time looking around. After the large passenger magic car drove them through several streets in the main base, They quickly arrived at a large building complex and stopped. This is the company's Academy of Magic. Hearing the staff member's introduction, everyone showed a look of admiration. This place was the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce that represented the most advanced magic machine industry on the continent. After Lucian stopped for a bit, he was led by the staff of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce into a 7-story building. Finally, everyone entered a large conference room on the 3rd floor. Other than seeing Master Akali sitting in the main seat of the conference room, Lucian actually saw another person in the conference room that surprised him. Chapter 1160. Lucian looked at the girl sitting next to Master Akali and shook his head hard to make sure he wasn't seeing things. That's right, this girl was the mysterious girl he met last month. Lucian originally thought that it would be difficult for him to see her again, but he didn't expect to see her now. He was about to wave his hand to greet the girl, but the girl glanced at him and shook her head gently. Lucian could only suppress the question in his heart as he looked at Master Akali in the main seat with the others. "Everyone sit down," Akali casually called out. After everyone sat down, she looked over them and said with a nod, "Since you can all pass the test I set, then you can all meet my requirements in terms of individual strength. Then I don't have anything to test you on. The main thing I want to tell you is some practical requirements." Everyone looked at Akali, and even their breathing slowed down. "The research assistants I need to recruit this time will be sent to work outside of signs for a long time. The shortest is half a year, and the longest maybe once a year. So if any one of you can accept this arrangement, you can choose to withdraw now." The group of people looked at each other, and a few of them had a difficult expression. Although becoming Master Akali's personal assistant was a once-in-a-blue-moon chance to leave the Signs continent for half a year, or even a year, this was a request that some people couldn't accept. After a moment of silence, 2 people stood up and bowed to Akali with a regretful expression, indicating that they couldn't accept this arrangement. Akali didn't care. She waved her hand and said, "Go back and take the normal assessment. If you can pass, you will also have the opportunity to work in New Flyer." The 2 of them looked at each other and sighed at the same time. However, the 2 of them didn't leave. One of them hesitated and asked Akali, "Master Akali, can you tell us what kind of benefits there are to be your personal assistant? If it's good enough, then I think I can accept this arrangement." Everyone's expression changed, and they all looked at Akali. That's right, this was what they were really concerned about. Although Akali was almost everyone's idol, it was everyone's dream to be her research assistant. However, the specific benefits were what they were really concerned about. In the end, they wanted to work for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce because of the good treatment this place could provide. Akali smiled. She wasn't surprised by this question. As for the specific benefits, if you accept this job, you will become a junior research assistant at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. You will enjoy all the benefits of a junior research assistant. I'm sure you've already investigated this when you came to apply, so I don't need to say more. Many people nodded. When the Frestec Chamber of Commerce held a public recruitment, they would clearly state the salaries of the positions and publish it in the newspapers ahead of time. As long as one had the intention to apply for the job, they could easily obtain this information and have a good idea of what to do. Because of the special nature of this job, you will also receive special benefits in addition to the basic benefits of a junior research assistant. The amount of this special benefit will be decided by me. For now, it will be set at 5 gold coins per person per month. It will be adjusted based on the situation in the future. Of course, if you perform well, I won't be stingy with giving extra bonuses. Also, because you are researchers sent out by the company will take care of your food and lodging. You don't have to worry about it. How about it? This isn't bad, right? Everyone looked at each other and nodded. The basic salary of a junior research assistant at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce was as high as 25 gold coins per month. Adding on the 5 gold coins bonus, that was a monthly salary of 30 gold coins. Although this wasn't the highest income in the current signs, it was still among the top. The most important thing was that compared to the other companies on the continent, The Frestec Chamber of Commerce had a good reputation and had the most promising prospects. Working for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was without a doubt the brightest choice. This was much more important than a few or even a dozen gold coins a month. Moreover, Master Akali said that all food and lodging problems will be taken care of by New Flyer. This would save them a lot of money and a lot of energy. It could be considered another form of income. All in all, this treatment was enough to satisfy them. The person who asked about the treatment lowered his head and muttered to himself for a while before sitting down again. Everyone looked at him, and he explained with a slightly red face, "With this kind of treatment, I think my wife will agree to me leaving home for half a year." Everyone was stunned for a moment before they couldn't help but laugh. After all this time, this guy was actually a henpecked husband. While laughing, Lucian couldn't help but look at the people around him who had passed the test. Previously, he did not pay much attention to them. Now that he took a closer look, he realized that not all of the 20 or so people were like him who had just graduated from the academy. Many of them were clearly older, and one of them even had a few strands of white hair. Hearing that person's explanation, Akali couldn't help but smile. "All right, as long as you feel that you can accept this arrangement, then of course I welcome you. This job requires a lot of manpower, and it's good to have a qualified assistant." Because of the previous change of mind, only one person was left who wanted to withdraw. Everyone looked at him. That person clenched his teeth and made up his mind after a while. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry, Master Akali. My parents are old, and I can't leave home for a long time." Akali nodded. "You don't need to apologize to me. It's commendable that you're willing to consider your parents' situation." She then turned to look at the others. "Even if it's you guys, I suggest that you seriously reconsider whether you can really accept being away for half a year or even a year. You have to know that this time, you won't be going hundreds or thousands of kilometers away, but thousands or even tens of thousands of kilometers away. So you have to think carefully." Everyone fell silent. That person's reason had shaken them a little. Indeed, the transportation in the signs was much more convenient than before, so people didn't have to stay in one place for their entire lives like before. However, traveling thousands or even tens of thousands of kilometers in a single breath wasn't easy for people to accept. "All right, I'm not asking you to immediately agree. The official list of names will probably have to wait until next week, so you still have a few days to think about it." Akali waved to a new Flyer staff member who had been standing behind her. That staff member took out a lot of documents and distributed them to everyone. "These are some brief introductions about the job, as well as some of the requirements I have. Take a good look over the next few days. If you feel that you can accept and meet my requirements, give me a clear answer in a few days. If you can't, make a decision as soon as possible so you don't miss the Chamber of Commerce's public recruitment." Akali continued. After saying this, Akali made a gesture that indicated the end of the meeting. Everyone immediately stood up and bowed to Akali, then took the documents and left the meeting room. Just as Lucian was about to leave, Akali suddenly spoke again. "All right, Lucian, you stay." The others looked at Lucian with envy and jealousy before leaving in a single file. When only Lucian, Akali, and the others were left in the meeting room, the mysterious girl who had been sitting next to Akali with her head down looked up and looked at Lucian. "I didn't think you would still come. I thought you would be like those angry children who didn't want to come." Just like when he saw her before, her tone was relaxed with a hint of joy. Her eyes were also smiling, but there was no smile on her face. It looked very strange. Lucian looked at her with a complicated expression for a while, hesitated, then walked over and bowed deeply to her. "I'm sorry, and thank you." The girl seemed to be a little surprised by Lucian's action. She paused for a moment, then let out a light and energetic laugh. "Looks like you finally thought it through. Very good. I like young people like you who can learn from your mistakes." Lucian raised his head and looked at her with a strange expression. This girl didn't look much older than him. Why did she like to call him and the group of students from last time young people, as if she was very old? "Freya, you're saying that others are young in front of me. Are you implying that I'm old?" Akali on the side suddenly cut in. The girl giggled. "And Akali, you said it yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, She is younger than me by a few years. Of course I have to call her young. You don't learn from your father. You're so young, and you're already acting like an old man. What will you do in the future? Okay, you said my father is acting like an old man. Be careful, I'll tell him. He won't pay attention to you. Akali shook her head and turned to look at Lucian, who was in a daze. She smiled and said, Sorry, I've only been paying attention to the two of us. Lucian, Freya especially mentioned you last time, so I paid more attention to you this time. From your test, just now, I can see that your foundation is very solid. You also have very good practical skills, and you're also very creative. This is very rare. I hope you can keep it up in the future. Lucian hurriedly nodded. Thank you for your teachings. I definitely will. And actually, I don't have much to say. It's just that Freya is very happy to see you here, so she asked you to stay and see what she wants to say to you. Lucian looked at the mysterious girl called Freya in surprise. Freya smiled and waved her hand. I don't have much to say. Last time, I found that you had good talent and didn't want you to be buried. That's why I recommended you to our company. Now that you're here and you've passed Anakali's test, that's very good. I hope you can work well under Anakali in the future. And don't blame me for not reminding you. Anakali looks very gentle on the outside, but she's actually very strict. You have to be careful. What nonsense! Akali glared at Freya, then turned to Lucian and shook her head with a smile. You have a few days to think about it. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. Seeing that Akali wanted to end the conversation, Lucian nodded and bowed to the two of them before leaving. After leaving the conference room, Lucian walked while thinking about the conversation just now. He kept feeling that something was wrong. After a while, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His eyes were wide open and his face was full of shock. God above, Freya? Isn't that? Chapter 11:61. Seeing the door close, Akali turned to look at Freya with a smile. Hey, Freya, you wouldn't have taken a fancy to him, right? Freya immediately glared at Akali. And Akali, this joke isn't funny at all. If Lord Father hears this, he might get angry at you. Akali shrugged. I don't think so. No matter how much he likes you as his daughter, you'll get married sooner or later. Look, you're in your 20s this year. I'll be 24 soon. Freya gave a soft snort. Who said I'll get married sooner or later? You and Anavita aren't married yet. The two of us aren't the same as you. Who told the person we like not to accept us? Akali reached out with a smile and rubbed Freya's head. Freya, if Sir Chairman had accepted me back then, maybe he would have a daughter around your age. Freya giggled. That's between you two. Don't drag me in. If you want a daughter, I can also be your daughter. Me and Avita watched you grow up. Most of the time, we've treated you like a daughter. Akali paused and stopped smiling. All right, I won't joke around. Seriously, Freya, you'll be 24 soon. You'll reach the age you agreed on with Sir Chairman. Have you decided yet? Freya immediately revealed a distressed expression. She frowned and thought for a bit before slowly shaking her head. I haven't decided yet. What? You're still not interested in taking over the company? It's not right to say I'm not interested. These 2 years, I've tried to get in touch with the company's work, and I've found that many things are quite interesting. But I feel that deciding my future so early, I'm a bit unwilling. Unwilling to be bound. Akali asked again. I can understand that. When I was young, I yearned for freedom more than you do now. I was very unwilling to be bound to one place. It was only after I found the magic communication network that I was willing to dedicate my life to. I don't think so. I just feel that. Father always has too many things to consider in his life. His life is very tiring. I don't like him like this, Freya said. Akali heaved a long sigh. Mr. President does need to consider many things all the time. It can't be helped. After all, he's the president of New Flyer. He carried the fate of countless people on his shoulders, and his every move could determine the direction of the development of science. Therefore, he had to consider more and not make any mistakes. But I don't agree with you that his life is too tiring. Aren't you tired? I have to think about so many messy things all the time. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Freya pouted. He's used to it. Akali smiled gently. Or perhaps this is where his joy lies. Sir Chairman always had a great dream, and this dream, he had already clearly stated it in the Banded Declaration 10 years ago. In the many years since he founded New Flyer, he has always worked hard towards this dream. Freya, perhaps you don't understand now, but when a person works hard for their dream, they don't feel tired at all. Is that so? Freya looked at Akali in a daze, but it was unknown where her eyes had already drifted off to. All right, you don't need to be this worried. Akali patted Freya's shoulder. I understand Sir President's personality. Although he hopes that you can take over the company, he definitely hopes that you can live the life you want. If you're not willing to take over the company, he won't force you. You still have a year to consider it. So think about it properly. Freya thought about it and softly clapped her hands as she said in a relaxed voice, That's right. I still have a year. Then again, don't I have several little brothers and sisters? Even if I'm not willing, I'll just let Sir Father train them as successors. Hey. Akali couldn't help reaching out to tap Freya's head as she reprimanded. What nonsense are you saying? The moment you were born, the president publicly announced that you were his only successor. I understand, Sir President. If you're not willing to take over the company, he won't let any of your little brothers or sisters take over New Flyer. So do you understand how important your choice is? Freya stuck out her tongue. Akali, I thought that you would comfort me, but you're just lecturing me like mother. I just hope that you can take some time to think it through. Although Sir President doesn't care, Steele should care very much. Other than that, your choice isn't just related to you, it's related to the close to 1 million people in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Don't look at me like that. Your choice is that important. You don't have the right to treat it as you wish. Hearing Akali's tone become stern, Freya put away her mischievous attitude, pondered for a moment, and nodded heavily. Okay, Akali, I'll definitely consider it carefully. If I feel that I'm not willing to accept it, I'll definitely explain it to Sir Father. I believe that he'll understand me and support me. If I decide to accept it, then I'll also make up my mind to properly shoulder my responsibilities. Akali sighed softly as she patted Freya's head with a doting expression. Although many people think that you're the luckiest girl in the world, you're also shouldering an enormous pressure that no one can imagine. It's a good thing that your father is the most open-minded father in the world. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to have a happy childhood, and it's even more impossible for you to maintain such a relaxed attitude. So Freya, thank your father. His greatness is not only reflected in changing the face of the world, it's also reflected in every bit of your life. Freya raised her head as her eyes lit up. Of course, Sir Father is the greatest person in my heart. No one can compare to him. Even Steele can't compare to him. Freya hesitated a bit, but still firmly nodded. Even Mother can't compare to her. Humph, who told her to not be home? Akali couldn't help laughing. Even I can't defend Steele on this point. She's busy with the new Moon Chamber of Commerce, so she doesn't have much time to accompany you. Saying this, Akali looked at Freya again, as she continued. Actually, I've always suspected that it's because Sir Chairman's image is too great in your heart. That's why you haven't had a boyfriend yet. Akali was just joking, but she didn't expect Freya to nod without any hesitation, as she coldly snorted, Why would I like those ordinary boys? They're all as annoying as flies. I don't like them. Saying this, she looked at Akali as she asked, Akali, aren't you the same? Because of Sir Father, you're not willing to accept other men. Akali could only bitterly smile. So you're saying that the two of us were harmed by Sir Chairman? But I can say that, but you can't. After all, you're his daughter. After saying this, Akali stood up. All right, I still have to arrange the matters of the overseas base, so I don't have time to chat with you. Freya, think about what I just said, but don't expect me to give you any advice. Sir Chairman has clearly warned us that no one is allowed to interfere with your decision. After saying this, Akali directly walked out the door. Just as she opened the door to the conference room, she suddenly thought of something. Turning her head, she slightly frowned as she looked at Freya. I say, can you change your illusion skin? Although I understand that in order to blend in with the students, you had to pretend to be a teenager, but isn't this too ugly? Freya giggled. It's because I'm a bit ugly that I won't attract attention. If I keep my original appearance, how can I blend in? Akali thought for a bit as she rolled her eyes. All right, what you said makes sense. Watching Akali leave the conference room, Freya waved her hand, and a flickering blue light, extremely smooth water mirror with an extremely bright surface appeared in front of her. The mirror reflected Freya's face very clearly. Freya stared at herself in the mirror, looked left and right, and muttered, "Am I really that ugly? I think it's okay. Of course, I'm a bit too young, and it doesn't match my age." After looking for a while, Freya blinked her eyes, and the magic in her body moved slightly. From head to toe, her whole body emitted a faint fluctuation of colorful light. Under the flickering light, Freya's whole body began to change little by little. After a while, she had completely changed into a different person. The current Freya was no longer the little girl with an extremely ordinary appearance, without any special features, who wouldn't attract anyone's attention when walking on the road. Instead, she had become an extremely beautiful girl with beautiful facial features, a gentle face, a noble temperament, and full of vitality. Her eyes were full of spirituality, and she looked to be about 20 years old. Such a girl, no matter where she went, would inevitably become the focus of everyone's attention, completely different from the ordinary girl from before. Freya looked at the familiar face in the mirror, touched her own face, and her face moved, revealing a somewhat unnatural smile. The illusion skin obtained from Elder Lysania was very good for disguise, but the flaw was that it couldn't perfectly reveal her expression, which was a very serious flaw. It seems that the next time I see Grandma Lysania, I'll have to give her some advice. Freya rubbed her face, tidied up her expression, and walked out of the conference room. Chapter 1162. When Freya, who had returned to her original appearance, came out of the conference room, she immediately attracted the attention of everyone around her. No one was surprised that she suddenly appeared here, and they didn't greet her, they just nodded in response. This was the request of the New Flyers chairman Sue E. over the years. He hoped that the people around Freya wouldn't treat her with special treatment and let her grow up like a normal child. Of course, this was Sue Yi's beautiful wish that was even called naive by Steele. Actually, no matter what, Freya, as Sue Yi's only successor, was very special, so it was impossible for others to treat her normally. Then again, even if they didn't mention Freya's identity, just based on the natural beauty she inherited from Steele, it was enough for her to attract people's gazes wherever she went and receive special treatment from others. Freya was already used to this, so she didn't have any special thoughts about it. But she didn't like being surrounded by a group of people. It made her feel like she had no freedom. So she liked the secret treasure of the elves that Elder Lysania had given her since she was young, the illusion skin. It allowed her to change her appearance at will and let her experience the life of a normal person, seeing the warm smiles on the faces of the people around her. But because of her father's rules, they didn't dare approach and tried their best to be calm. Freya felt it was interesting. She maintained a perfect smile on her face and responded to everyone without missing a single person. Whether it was her appearance, actions, or even her actions, they all perfectly matched the image of her identity, and people couldn't find a single problem with it. To be able to do this, it came from the strict requirements her mother Steele had for her since she was young. Maintaining this perfect posture the entire way, Freya slowly walked out of the Magic Communication Research building and entered a new fire red magic sedan. When she closed the door, she let out a long sigh. That warm and friendly smile on her face instantly turned into a playful look. "Hey, Eleanor, have you thought about where you want to play?" If Lucian had been here, he would have jumped in shock. Sitting in the passenger seat of this magic sedan was a young elven girl with almost perfect features, a noble aura, and 2 long ears. She was the most outstanding star of the elves right now. Young Miss Lenore, who had captivated countless men on the signs. Lenore looked at Freya from head to toe with a smile and shook her head slightly. "Unfortunately, we don't have time to go anywhere now." "Why?" Freya was stunned. Eleanor waved the delicate magic communicator in her right hand. "Because I just received news that the president has returned." Freya was stunned, and her eyes widened. It can't be. Mother is back? Lenore wasn't an employee of a new flyer. She was a star who belonged to the New Moon Chamber of Commerce. So the president she mentioned wasn't Sue. Rather, it was the New Moon Chamber of Commerce's president, Freya's mother Steele. Seeing Freya's shocked appearance, she couldn't help laughing. You're this afraid of the president? It's not that I'm afraid. All right, I'm just afraid. Freya leaned over the steering wheel in a distressed manner and gave a long sigh. If she knew what I did last month, I would be dead for sure. Lenore reached out to pull Freya's ear and said with a laugh, You deserve it. Who told you to take the risk alone? What if something happened? Not to mention the president scolding you. Even Chairman Sue wouldn't let you off this time. It can't be that serious, right? Hearing Lenore mention her father, Freya suddenly sat up from the steering wheel. After thinking about it, she shook her head. It can't be. Father wouldn't scold me. He has always encouraged me to experience more things. It's not like he wants you to take risks. Lenore rolled her eyes at Sue. If something really happened to you, I'm certain that Chairman Sue would be heartbroken. Oh no, I'm certain of this, but nothing happened to me. Freya pursed her lips and slightly knit her brows to think for a bit. She suddenly looked at Lenore and gave a soft snort. Humph! I knew that you wouldn't come to play with me for no reason. Be honest, you're a spy sent by Mother, right? Lenore couldn't help laughing. Whether I'm a spy or not, now that Sir Chairman has summoned you. What are you planning to do? It's fine, it's not like I'm going to die. Freya muttered before skillfully starting the magic sedan. In the blink of an eye, they charged out of the Academy of Magic and headed towards the sea. After 10 minutes, the magic sedan turned into a flame-red light as it charged in a Su-Yi's manner on the cliff beside the main base. As soon as the car stopped, Freya immediately opened the door and flew straight to the entrance of the manor's main hall, throwing herself into the arms of a beautiful woman. Mother, you're back. I'm really happy to see you. This beautiful woman was naturally Steele. She looked at Freya, who was looking up at her with a flattering smile, and gave a cold snort. Are you really happy to see me? Freya's expression changed slightly before revealing an even brighter smile. She held Steele's arm and shook it. Of course I'm happy. How could I not be happy to see you? It's very rare for you to come back. I remember, the last time I saw you was at least 2 months ago, right? Hearing this, Steele's face revealed a trace of sadness that was hard to notice. Because she was busy with work for the New Moon Chamber of Commerce, she didn't spend much time at home, so she didn't have much time to spend with her children. As a result, Freya and her younger brother were always in awe of Steele rather than close to him. Hey Freya, I warned you last time. Don't try to stir up the guilt in your mother's heart to avoid possible punishment. I don't like this method. A voice that didn't sound special, but was very clear and low, but was filled with vitality, came from the door. Hearing this voice, Freya's brows suddenly jumped up. With a cheer, she went around Steele and charged at him. He gave a soft snort and a light blue shield appeared in front of him, blocking Freya, who charged at him. Freya giggled and moved the magic in her body. The magic elements in the magic space around her immediately became abnormal. In the blink of an eye, Su-Yi's magic shield disappeared. Su-Yi was surprised and raised the corner of his mouth. The magic in his body surged again and set up another layer of magic shield. Freya wasn't surprised at all. She pointed her hands a few times, and the magic elements around her immediately changed the way they flowed. This time she took a little longer, about 7 or 8 seconds, to break the magic shield set up by Su-Yi. Not bad. Su-Yi praised and set up another layer of magic shield in front of him. Freya tried twice, but couldn't break the magic shield. She stopped and frowned. Steele, who was left behind, saw this scene and couldn't help but shake her head. Okay, you father and daughter can play games if you want, but can't you think about the time and place? Su-Yi laughed and removed the magic shield. He patted Freya's shoulder and pointed at Steele. Go, apologize to your mother. Okay, Freya responded and looked back at Steele. She took a deep breath and strode to Steele and bowed deeply. Mother, I'm sorry. Steele had a smile on her face, but her tone was still low. Why are you sorry? I shouldn't have deliberately brought up your sad matter in order to make you unwilling to punish me. I'm sorry. Freya replied loudly. Oh, is it only because of this? Freya paused and suddenly straightened her body and looked straight at Steel. If you think what I did last month was wrong, then you can punish me as you wish. I have no objections, but I don't think I was wrong. Steel stared at her. You still don't want to admit your mistake? Yes. The decision to sneak in secretly was the result of my discussion with Uncle Harris and the others. Uncle Harris and the others agreed. At that time, only I had the ability to sneak in because I had the illusion skin. No one else could have done it. As it turned out, this played a big role in solving the problem and fully protected the safety of the students. Freya replied proudly. You. Steel raised her eyebrows and wanted to scold Freya, but she saw that she was very determined and did not seem to be giving in at all. She could only turn her eyes to Sue-E behind her. Sue-E coughed and said seriously, Freya, I agree with your opinion and actions, but I'm not satisfied with the way you talk to your mother. Freya stuck out her tongue and smiled again. She rushed to Steel and hugged her. Mother, I know I ran away and made you worried, but you don't have to worry at all. I'm very strong now. Those guys can't hurt me. Plus, I have Uncle Harris and the others as backup. I don't have to be afraid. What if something unexpected happens? Steel glared at her. What if something like that happens? No one can be sure. If something unexpected happens, even if I'm sitting at home, I might get hit by a rock. Freya giggled. You only know how to twist words. Steel looked at Freya again and sighed. She looked at Sue-E and shook her head. If you continue to spoil her like this, you'll have a headache in the future. Sue-E paused for a moment and did not refute Steel's words, but his eyes gradually became serious as he looked at Freya. Freya was surprised by the sudden change in Sue-Yi's eyes. In her impression, her father rarely looked at her with such a serious expression. Could it be that something big happened? Thinking of this, Freya immediately became nervous. Chapter 1163. Freya, Harris has told me about what happened last month. You are willing to take the responsibility and take the risk to solve the problem. I appreciate that, but you have to finish what you started. If you run away after taking a risk and don't care about anything else, then I will only think that you decided to do it for fun. If that is the case, I don't like it. Seeing the serious look on Sue-Yi's face, Freya was a bit nervous. She rolled her big eyes and quickly understood the meaning of Sue-Yi's words. Dad, you mean? The kidnapping incident is not over yet? Sue-Yi sighed softly and shook his head. Since you've asked this question, it's obvious that you're only participating in it with the intention of fooling around. Freya, go and receive your punishment from Mom. I have no reason to defend you this time. Freya's face slightly changed. She looked back at Steel with a bitter face, but saw Steel looking at her expressionlessly. She could only obediently walk to Steel's side and lower her head. Mother, please punish me. I just feel that you did something wrong because you didn't cherish yourself and took the risk easily and made us worried. As for your punishment, you have to learn space magic seriously from Great-Grandpa for a week. You have to get Great-Grandpa's approval. Do you understand? Freya raised her head and smiled again. I understand. Mom, you just want me to learn more life-saving skills. I will learn seriously. Steel shook her head and laughed. She patted her and said, Okay, go to your dad. He must have something else to tell you. Yes. Freya naughtily bowed and quickly ran to Sue-Yi's side. Dad, I have received my punishment from Mom and am here to report to you. You think this is the end? Sue-Yi was still expressionless. Your mother just thinks that you've made a mistake by making yourself a suspect and causing us to worry. But in my opinion, your biggest mistake is that you didn't do things properly. You only cared about having fun and participated, but you didn't care about the aftermath of this matter at all. You also didn't care about the impact of your participation. This is a more serious mistake than putting yourself in danger. Do you understand? Freya scratched her head in bewilderment. Dad, is there any follow-up to that incident? Haven't we already cleaned up the human trafficker's lair and rescued the kidnapped people? So you think that everything that happens after that should be my headache and have nothing to do with you, right? Sue-Yi snorted coldly. Freya stuck out her tongue and snorted softly. Uncle Harris betrayed me. Sue knocked on her head. What do you mean by betraying you? He was telling me the truth. Let me tell you, dealing with the power behind the human traffickers is indeed something that should be my headache. However, I had given you full authority to deal with this matter of rescuing the kidnapped people. You're also responsible for any problems that arise from this matter. What other problems are there? Didn't Uncle Harris say that the rest are just procedural issues, so it doesn't matter? Don't ask me, I don't know. Sue, he shook his head. Freya looked at Sue in shock. Dad, are you kidding me? Sue Yi's face, which had been solemn all this time, revealed a sly smile. I really don't know. The emissary group sent by the Kanla Empire had specifically requested to meet with you to discuss some matters of cooperation. It has nothing to do with me. Freya was stunned. Then, she quickly understood. All right, Dad, you did it on purpose, didn't you? Sue grinned. Don't worry about whether or not I did it on purpose. Anyway, this was caused by you, so you have to be responsible for it. I don't need to say anything else, right? Freya sighed helplessly and nodded dejectedly. I know. Should I go and meet with the people from the Kanla Empire later? Don't ask me. This is your business. Sue put on a hateful look as if it had nothing to do with him. Freya could not help but pout. Steele, who was watching from the side, could not help but laugh. That's enough. Can you two stop playing such childish games in front of the guests? Renoya, come in and have a seat. I still have to discuss the new program with you. Renoya, who had been quietly waiting for Freya to interact with her parents, walked up with a smile. She bowed to Steele and Sue respectively, and then looked at Sue seriously. Chairman Sue, the elder wants me to ask you, when are you going to marry me? Sue, he rolled his eyes. I say, Renoya, can you not ask me this every time you see me? Because you haven't given me a specific answer yet. Renoya was still smiling, as if she did not realize how abrupt and inappropriate her question was at all. If the fanatical fans of Eleanor across the Signs continent heard this question, there would be countless people who would feel sad. Of course, nobody would feel angry. This was because the one Eleanor was asking was Sue. But I've told you clearly many times that I won't agree. Sue shook his head with a wry smile. Go back and tell Elder Undine that I'm almost 60 years old. Marrying a young girl like you and me would be a waste of God's gift. Besides, I already have so many wives, I don't want to have another one. But Chairman Sue, I'm already 98 years old this year. I'm almost 40 years older than you. Renoya smiled. You're an elf. How can you calculate your age like a human? Sue, you retorted. But Chairman Sue, you've already fused with the life essence of us elves. With your magic power, even if you're 60 years old, you'll be in a much better state than a 30-year-old human. So, it's not a problem. Seeing that Eleanor was pestering him, Sue could only helplessly roll his eyes again. No matter what, Renoya, I won't agree. Look, my daughter is almost as old as you. How can I marry an elf like you? Besides, aren't you good friends with Freya? If I marry you, what do you want Freya to call you? Freya had been watching Renoya propose to Sue with great interest. When she suddenly heard Sue mention her, she couldn't help but giggle. She blinked and nodded seriously. Well, that's a problem. But, Father, this doesn't conflict with Renoya wanting to marry you, does it? I'm very supportive of you marrying Renoya. That way, we'll be a family. Don't you think so, Renoya? Of course. Renoya nodded affirmatively. Sue could only turn to Steele for help. Steele shrugged and smiled. You know, I don't care about that. If you want to marry Renoya, then marry her. I won't object. Sue sighed and smacked his head. He waved to Freya and Renoya. You two go in first. Freya giggled and pulled Renoya into the house. While running, she waved her fist at Sue and made an encouraging gesture. Sue couldn't help but laugh. After Freya and Renoya disappeared behind the door, he stopped smiling and sighed. It seems like the Ella tribe isn't willing to be under the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe. Of course, the benefits that the Night Song tribe and the Moon Shadow tribe had obtained from cooperating with the Frestek Chamber of Commerce over the years, Elder Undine had seen this. Although the Azhara tribe has a close cooperation with the New Flyer, it can't compare to the benefits of cooperating with the New Flyer. It's normal for her to have this idea. But why is it that to realize this idea, you have to marry an elven girl first? Sue revealed a bitter smile. Steele rolled her eyes at Sue. Who told you to marry Agnes? How can Agnes' situation be the same? She's the first elf I've seen and the one I've been in contact with for the longest time, the one I have the deepest feelings for. Moreover, even if it was Agnes, I had to hesitate for a long time before marrying her with your support. Now, that Elder Undine wants to push Renoia to me. How could I accept it? But since you've married Agnes, this is equal to setting a precedent. So Elder Lysania had Tvisty marry you for the sake of fairness. Now, that the Azhara tribe wants to be treated the same as the Nightsong tribe and the Moonshadow tribe, they clearly feel that it's more convenient to start with you, the chairman of a new flyer. Therefore, it isn't surprising for them to marry an elven girl from their tribe to you. Your analysis is very reasonable, but Steele, why do I feel like it's a bit strange? Sue, he had a strange look on his face. According to what you're saying, if any elven tribe wants to cooperate with our new flyer, wouldn't they have to marry an elven girl from their tribe to me first? Not to mention the Demon Cloud continent, there are already several dozen elven tribes in the signs. Could it be that I'll have to open a large elven harem in the future? Steele looked at Sue and revealed a faint smile. This isn't a bad thing. Anyway, these elven girls are all very beautiful, so you won't lose out. What kind of joke is this? Suyi's eyes opened wide. After thinking for a bit, he shook his head. No, I have to think of a way to solve this problem. Otherwise, it'll be too troublesome in the future. Steele looked at the door and gave a faint sigh. If you want to firmly refuse, then make a decision as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm worried that little girl Renoia will really fall in love with you. Sue was stunned. It can't be. I haven't even seen her that many times. Steele revealed a smile and reached out to pinch Suyi's face like she often did when she was young. There's nothing I can do about it. Who told my husband to be too charming? Chapter 1164. An hour later, Freya appeared in front of the Candor diplomatic group. She had already changed into a formal dress that fully displayed her noble temperament and perfect figure. She didn't have the playful look she had in front of Sue, and Steele. Rather, she had a perfect smile. Looking over, the Kamla Empire diplomatic group quickly stood up with smiles. Miss Freya, it's an honor to see you. The leader of the diplomatic group, the Kamla Empire's Deputy Minister of External Affairs Mufara Marquis, who was in charge of negotiating with a new flyer, slightly bowed to Freya with a bright smile on his face. Last time when Miss Freya came to our Kamla Empire, I didn't have the chance to meet you. Now that I've seen you in person, I can't help but marvel at your beauty. Miss Freya, if you're willing to appear on Magic Illusion more often, I think that even Miss Freya's popularity can't compare to yours. In order to protect Freya, and also because Freya wasn't willing, Sue and Steele didn't let Freya's image appear on any newspaper or Magic Illusion program. On the signs, many people knew that new Flyer chairman Su Yi's eldest daughter was over 20 this year and was a very outstanding beauty, but there were very few people who had seen Freya's true appearance. So in many newspapers, Freya, who only knew her name, was already the most mysterious girl on the signs. Freya revealed a faint smile. Thank you for your praise. Mufara Marquis, I wonder why you wanted to see me? I haven't had any contact with you before, right? Mufara and Marquis stared blankly for a moment, but soon regained their composure and smiled. Our visit this time actually has something to do with the cooperation we had with your Chamber of Commerce last month regarding the operation against human trafficking within the Empire. Miss Freya, I heard from Chairman Sue that you also participated in the operation of your association's guards last month, right? Freya was also stunned for a moment, but she instantly understood. The Kamla Empire had no idea that she had participated in the operation last month. No wonder she found it strange. Her participation in the operation was kept a secret from the outside world. She also maintained her illusion skin throughout the entire process and did not reveal her true appearance. Logically speaking, she should not have been exposed. Now that she heard Mufara Marquis say this, she finally understood that she had been sold by her father, Freya snorted in her heart, but she still maintained a perfect smile on her face and nodded gently. Yes, it was instructed by my father to participate, but I was only a bystander during the whole process and didn't actually do anything. My father only hoped that I could familiarize myself with the movement patterns of the company's guards, so that it would be easier for me to come into contact with them in the future. Mufara Marquis laughed out loud. Miss Freya, as the successor of the new flyer, is only natural for you to come into contact with and even take charge of the company's guards in advance. Chairman Su's arrangement isn't strange at all. Freya couldn't help but frown slightly. Su Yi had already publicly announced to everyone when she was born that she was Su Yi's sole successor. All of his other children only had the right to inherit a portion of his assets and nothing else. That was why everyone was very clear that Freya would inherit Su Yi's position in the future and become the next chairman of the new flyer if nothing unexpected happened. Not only did everyone in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce think this, the people outside the Frestec Chamber of Commerce also thought this. That was why everyone treated Freya as the successor of the new flyer and treated her with great respect. Freya didn't particularly dislike this, but she didn't like it either. Before she made up her mind, she didn't want her fate to be determined like this. Mufara Marquis naturally didn't understand Freya's thoughts. In his opinion, being able to become the chairman of the new flyer was something everyone dreamed of. New Flyer now controlled more than half of the magic industry and the signs, and the other half couldn't be separated from the new flyer and would be greatly influenced by the new flyer. With how important the magic industry was to all the countries on the continent, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that New Flyer controlled the fate of almost everyone on the continent. As the chairman of the New Flyer, Su Yi's position in the signs was no less than the emperor of the two empires. If Freya inherited the New Flyer, then even if she couldn't compare to Su Yi, she would still become one of the most important people on the continent. That was why, even though he was the deputy minister of external affairs of the Kanla Empire and was considered an important person in the Kanla Empire, he didn't dare to be negligent in front of Freya. I'm just watching from the side. It's too early to talk about taking charge. Freya waved her hand casually and skipped the topic. Let's get down to business, Mufara Marquis. You said it has something to do with last month's operation. What are the specifics? Mufara Marquis coughed lightly and explained, Miss Freya, last month's operation could be considered a perfect success. With the help of the new flyer guards, we successfully captured a group of evil human traffickers and rescued a large number of hostages. However, the performance of the Empire in this operation wasn't satisfactory. Oh, you see, whether it's discovering the enemy, interrogating the hostages, or exchanging information, the Empire's special forces were far inferior to the new flyer guards. Their reactions were very slow. His Majesty was furious after reading the report and demanded that we immediately come up with a suitable solution. Thus, we came to your esteemed association for help. What kind of help do you need? Freya immediately asked in return. First of all, it's about exchanging information. The Empire hopes to further improve our cooperation with the Shinfei Merchant Guild of Magic and strengthen the magical communication network within the Empire, so that it can cover the entire Empire as soon as possible and achieve real-time communication at any place and any time. You shouldn't be coming to our guild for this, should you? Freya asked in surprise. We have always been promoting the construction of a magical communication network and have never spared any effort in this regard. The main problem is whether the other countries are willing to invest in it. If you wish to build a complete magical communication network as soon as possible, then you should first prepare sufficient funds. The Empire has long had the intention of investing in this matter, but there's always been a concern. Mufara Marquis feigned hesitation. Concern? Freya's mind was as clear as a mirror, but she didn't nod. She only looked at Mufara Count with a doubtful expression. Mufara Count coughed softly and mused for a moment before continuing. The Empire attaches great importance to the construction of a magical communication network. However, the establishment of the magical communication network led by your esteemed association, means that all relevant technical and operational data are in your hands. The Empire can only participate in the management of the network, but cannot interfere with it in any way. Oh no, there's no way to understand in detail. This is very detrimental to the normal operation of the magical communication network. If any problems arise, we would have to seek your esteemed association's technical help. This is simply too inconvenient. So you wish to obtain all relevant technical data, take control of the magical communication network, build it yourself, and then kick us aside. Freya cut him off rudely. No, no, no. Mufara Marquis quickly waved his hands. Lady Freya, please don't misunderstand. What I mean is that we don't always want to trouble your esteemed association's technical staff. We'll do our best to solve some small problems ourselves if we can. Isn't that better for us and you? As for kicking us aside, that's not what you're saying. So in the end, you still want the technical data related to the magical communication network. Hee hee. Well, if your esteemed association is willing to sell the relevant technical data, the Empire is willing to pay a price that will satisfy you. Mufara Marquis finally revealed his intentions. A price that satisfies you? Freya looked at Mufara Marquis from head to toe and mused for a moment before asking. You should have met my father before, right? What did he say? Chairman Su said that he has given full authority to you, Lady Freya, to handle this matter. Your opinion is his opinion. Mufara Marquis and the other members of the Kamla Empire's diplomatic group all looked at Freya expectantly. Su Yi's sly smile from before flashed across Freya's mind. All right, my father is clearly digging a hole for me to make things difficult for me. Freya closed her eyes and focused on thinking. Mufara Marquis and the others were pleasantly surprised when they saw her reaction. Before this, the Kamla Empire had made the same request to the new flyer several times, only to be rejected by the new flyer each time. This time, when they sought an audience with Su Yi again, Su Yi acted out of character. Although he didn't give them a clear answer, he told them to discuss it with Freya directly. This attitude was already a turning point in their eyes, and now that Lady Freya had closed her eyes and appeared to be in serious thought, did that mean that she might agree to their request? Everyone waited nervously for a while before Freya slowly opened her eyes. What do you think, Lady Freya? Mufara Marquis hurriedly asked. The corner of Freya's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a bright and beautiful smile that contained a hint of slyness. Shouldn't you at least show your sincerity before discussing this? Mufara Marquis and the others were stunned for a moment before they were overjoyed. Chapter 1165. According to the statistics of the 36 provinces of the Kamla Empire, there are currently magic communication networks in all of them. The magic signal has already covered 83% of the Kamla Empire. It can be said that the goal of being able to communicate in any place in the Kamla Empire has been achieved. Wait, Su raised his hand to cut off Freya's report. Covering 83% of the area, which means that there are still 17% of the places that aren't covered by magic signals. How can this be considered being able to communicate in any place? Freya couldn't help rolling her eyes. She immediately revealed a serious expression and said with a soft cough, the places that aren't covered by magic signals are either because the terrain is complicated and we can't build a magic signal tower, or because there are various obstacles in the area and the construction has been delayed, or we can't even start at all. After saying this, Freya paused and slightly knit her brows. It's very strange. Why is there this kind of situation? There are people who aren't willing to accept the coverage of the magic signal network. Could it be that they don't think that being able to communicate is very convenient? Su gave a shrug and said with a bit of helplessness, there's no other way. Even now, there are rumors among the people that the magic signal towers will control people's minds. When we were building the magic signal towers, it wasn't just in the Kamla Empire that we met this kind of obstruction, we also met this kind of obstruction in other countries. It can't be, right? What era is it now? There's still people who believe in this kind of thing. Freya's eyes opened wide as she revealed a look of disbelief. Remember, don't overestimate the understanding of normal people. He honestly told Freya. They are very easily persuaded and deceived, so it isn't strange for them to believe this kind of baseless thing at all. Other than this, I've seen many things that are even more unbelievable than this. You'll know more in the future, so you won't be surprised. Freya tilted her head and thought for a while. She still couldn't accept it. However, she knew that Sue-E would not deceive her on such matters, so she did not continue to dwell on this issue. Instead, her heart skipped a beat as she asked, "Dad, according to what you said just now, are you saying that these people are being manipulated by someone with ulterior motives?" Sue-E smiled and shook his head. "I didn't say that. You can investigate the truth yourself in the future." Freya snorted lightly. She knew that this was another test from her father. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. According to the data from various sources, the construction of the magic communication network within the Kanla Empire could be considered to have completed the initial project, and the coverage of the magic communication network had basically been achieved. If our company continues to stay in the Kanla Empire, due to various factors, there aren't many things we can change. So you feel that now is a very good time to let the Kanla Empire handle the construction and management of the magic communication network within the Kanla Empire themselves?" Sui asked. "From the perspective of profit, this is not the best time, but the worst time." Freya shook her head. "After 10 years of cooperation between our company and the Kanla Empire, the magic communication network within the Kanla Empire was finally completed. Now is the time to promote the magic communication network to the ordinary citizens of the Kanla Empire on a large scale. It is also the key period of growth for us to earn large amounts of profit through the magic communication network. If we withdraw now, it will be the same as handing over the foreseeable and enormous profits to the Kanla Empire." Sue-E revealed a smile of praise and nodded lightly. "That's right. Then what do you mean by reporting to me now? Could it be that you don't intend to agree to the Kanla Empire's request?" Freya giggled. "I didn't agree to the Kanla Empire's request. I only told them that we can discuss it. So after serious consideration, how do you intend to discuss it with them?" Sue-E continued to ask with a look of interest. Freya coughed lightly and adjusted the expression on her face, putting on a serious expression. "Sir Chairman, after serious consideration, I feel that our company can't just withdraw from the Kanla Empire's magic communication network. However, we can consider letting the Kanla Empire take care of the magic communication network." Continue. "Tell me your specific thoughts." "As for the follow-up magic communication network, I've already explained it very clearly in my report. Currently, the places where we can't set up the magic communication network are mostly because the terrain is too harsh, or because the local citizens are against it. No matter how you look at it, if we continue, we will encounter great difficulties. Even if we invest a large amount of money and manpower, it will be very difficult to convert it into actual close combat. If we hand this place over to the Kanla Empire, not only will our company be able to extricate itself, it will also be better for us to set up the magic communication network in these places." Freya revealed a sly smile. "Since the Kanla Empire's people are against it, then let the Kanla Empire solve this problem. No matter how you look at it, it will be much easier than a foreign company like us interfering. Don't you think so?" "From this point of view, that's right." Sue-E nodded and then asked, "But if you hand over the follow-up work to the Kanla Empire, it means that you've already agreed to the Kanla Empire's request to transfer the magic communication network technology to the Kanla Empire. Do you understand the consequences of agreeing to this condition?" "Of course I understand," Freya said proudly. "If we transfer the magic communication network technology to the Kanla Empire, it means that our company is opening up the technology in this area. It will definitely cause the other countries on the continent to react in the same way, and eventually we will fully open up the technology. This means that other than our company, the other countries and companies will also have the ability to set up magic communication networks. Our company won't be able to control all the magic communication networks like now." Sue-E said with a serious look. "Do you know how big of an impact this will bring to our company?" "Big of an impact? I don't think so. Freya smiled. Her expression relaxed. Mr. President, many years ago, you've listed the construction of magical communication networks as a national infrastructure industry, just like the construction of roads. So, in fact, this thing should be promoted by the various countries on the continent, shouldn't it? Then do you understand why I didn't open up the technology in this area and let the various countries on the continent promote it themselves? So he asked again. It's very simple. First, none of the previous countries had the ability in this area. Second, they didn't have the corresponding determination. Then do you think it's possible now? Of course. After 10 years of rapid development, almost all of the countries on the continent have made great progress in the magic industry. For example, a large empire like the Canla Empire already has a basic and complete magic industry system. They only need to obtain the corresponding technology, and they will be able to quickly grasp the method of setting up a magic communication network. Then do you think that after they obtain the technology, they will properly promote it? Of course they will be willing, and they will be more willing than when our company helped promote it. I'm sure of this. Freya's expression was full of confidence. Why are you so sure? So he asked with a smile. Because of the profits. Freya immediately replied. I just said that with the widespread promotion of magic communication, the operation of the magic communication network will generate enormous profits. If the Canla Empire wants to obtain these profits, or even a part of it, they will have to take control of part or even all of the magic communication network. So they will definitely be more anxious than us. Su leaned back slightly on the sofa and looked at Freya with a smile. He was very satisfied. After Freya came into contact with the Canla Empire's diplomatic group, it only took her 2 days to analyze and consider the whole matter in depth. Although there was a lot of help from the higher-ups of the company, it was enough to fully demonstrate her outstanding ability. If she was really willing to settle down and decide to take over the position of president, then with her intelligence, after a period of training, she would definitely be a very suitable candidate. The only pity was that she was still unable to settle down, causing many people in the company to be unable to completely let go of the stone in their hearts. Of course, because Sui had already agreed with Freya a few years ago that he would wait until she was 25 years old before asking her to make a decision. Sui wouldn't rush her. He could only try his best to guide her and let her come in contact with the company's affairs, trying to cultivate her interest in this area. Based on the results so far, she didn't particularly dislike dealing with these matters, but she wasn't very interested either. If this matter of dealing with the Canla Empire's request could pique her interest, then it would be very worth it. Thinking of this, Sui made a decision in his heart. Freya, your analysis is very reasonable. I have no objections. Now, as the president of the New Flyer, I give you full authority to deal with this matter and the relevant follow-up. As long as it's related to this matter, you don't need to ask for my opinion. Any decision you make will represent the New Flyer. Do you understand what I mean? Freya blinked, but didn't reveal the excitement and joy of being entrusted with such an important task. Instead, she looked suspiciously at Sui. After a long while, she snorted softly with a look of dissatisfaction. You know very well that just this matter alone is extremely troublesome to deal with. It won't be settled without a few months. Moreover, the follow-up will be almost impossible to completely resolve. I'm afraid that it won't be resolved in 10 years or even a few decades. You're clearly arranging things like this to firmly tie me down, right? Sui spread out his hands. I have no intention of restricting you. If you don't want to deal with it, as long as you arrange the follow-up work, you can leave at any time. Don't worry. I have no intention of using this matter to force you to be 25 years old. Freya rolled her eyes and suddenly revealed a smile. All right, since you've given me full authority, if I cause any trouble, you can't scold me. Chapter 1166. Sui smiled as he watched Freya walk out briskly. What kind of trouble would Freya cause? Perhaps. After all, she was far from being experienced, and it was normal for her to make mistakes when she was in charge of such a complicated matter. However, Sui gave her full authority to train her, so it was only natural for her to learn from her mistakes. Besides, with her intelligence, she definitely wouldn't act on her own. She would definitely listen to the opinions of others before making a decision. With the help of the experienced veterans of the Chamber of Commerce, Freya wouldn't be able to cause any trouble even if she wanted to. Besides, even if Freya's ability to cause trouble far exceeded Su Yi's expectations and messed up the entire matter, Su Yi wouldn't really care. The magical communication network industry was related to the magic machine industry, and it was a very important new industry with exceptionally good prospects. However, with New Flyer's current scale, even if they completely lost this industry, it would only bring about some losses and wouldn't hurt them at all. Besides, with Su Yi's original intention, the magical communication network should be managed by other countries, and it wasn't completely reasonable for the New Flyer Chamber of Commerce to be in charge of it alone. Su Yi had purposely controlled this industry in the hands of New Flyer. The main reason was to allow the magical communication network in Signs to have a completely unified standard so that it would be easier for it to be promoted and developed in the future. In the past 10 years, the rapid development of the magical communication network in Signs had also proven the effectiveness of this move. Although the Signs wasn't like Earth, where almost everyone had a mobile phone and everyone could communicate over long distances at any time, just the sales of New Flyer's new magical communicator exceeded 1 million units last month was enough to show this crazy trend. In the end, no one would be able to resist the temptation of being able to talk to their distant relatives at any time. Moreover, with the development of transportation in Signs and the development of the magic machine industry, there were countless people who left their homes and went to work in places far away. This also increased the demand for long-distance communication. New Flyer's method of promoting the magical communication network could be said to satisfy this demand. With these factors, the development speed of the magic communication network industry on the Signs continent far surpassed Su Yi's expectations. In just 10 years, it had already gone from being in the beginning to being in full swing. As a result, the magical communication network technology had developed by leaps and bounds, which had greatly surpassed Su Yi's expectations. In the beginning, the magical communication network promoted by New Flyer was only limited to the transmission of signals from the magic signal towers. Even a third party couldn't connect to it at the same time. But now, the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's newest magic signal processing terminal could handle over 100,000 magic signals at once. Although it couldn't compare to the processing capacity of the terminals on Earth, it was already enough to satisfy the current demand. Su Yi believed that with the popularization of the magical communication network in the future, the demand in this area would greatly increase. The processing technology of the magic signal would also increase, so it wouldn't be unable to satisfy the demand. Other than that, what surprised Su Yi and even caught him off guard was that the magical communication technology was different from the electronic and radio communication technology on Earth, so there were some differences in the development of both sides. Su Yi had planned the development of the magical communication network based on the development of the communication technology on Earth, but after that, the researchers of New Flyer would always bring him breakthroughs that were like black technology. The most obvious example would be video communication. On Earth, it was only in the last 10 years or so that long-distance video communication in the true sense became widespread. And the time between the first telephone and the first video communication on Earth was more than 100 years. But in Signs, the Magical Communication Research Department, led by a colleague, only used less than 2 years to achieve a breakthrough in long-distance video communication research, which greatly exceeded Su Yi's expectations. The reason for this result was that the magic signal transmission method had already been hidden in the magic research of the Signs continent for over 10,000 years. Akali and the others were just using the concept of magic science that Su Yi proposed to refine this method of magic that could only be used for destruction before, using it as a new method for civilian use. Similar examples could be found everywhere. Therefore, in these 10 years, Signs could be said to have experienced a huge explosion in magical technology. All kinds of new and interesting magical technologies emerged one after another, and there were many things that Su E didn't even think of. For example, just last month, a merchant company in the Malar Empire publicly announced that they had achieved a new magical technology breakthrough. This new technology was mainly used in the medical field, and they named it the disease microscopic manifestation technology. According to the merchant company, with this technology, they could fully display any symptoms in a patient's body and let the disease, which was originally difficult to detect, be detected in a weak state, thus preventing the disease from worsening and becoming difficult to cure. This technology, even on Earth, was definitely a super technology that could win the Nobel Prize in medicine. But when Sui knew the truth, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because this technological breakthrough was actually based on a dark magic spell that wasn't very common, but was not particularly rare in signs: extreme charm. The original function of this dark magic, called extreme charm, was to make the person who was being used on fall into an abnormal state and be completely under the control of the spellcaster. Under the deliberate guidance of the caster, the target's physical body and mind would be able to completely reveal the lowest level of things, leaving nothing to hide. According to the current magical science theory that Sui led and created, this magic used the fluctuations of magical elements to coincide with the human brain waves and induce the brain to send out the corresponding commands, thus controlling the person's body. In fact, it wasn't very advanced. However, the research of this merchant guild had made use of the characteristics of this magic, causing the human body to react to different frequencies of magical elemental fluctuations, thus exposing all the weak or hidden symptoms. Combined with a series of auxiliary methods, they could successfully determine the corresponding symptoms and hidden diseases and achieve the effect of prevention. It had to be said that this merchant company's research was very creative, so much so that Sui directly proposed to the Continental Sorcerers Guild to nominate this merchant company for the Best Magical Scientific Breakthrough of the Year award. But this merchant company forgot a very important thing, and that was the problem of ethics. Because this technology was based on dark magic, it caused many people to have doubts about this technological breakthrough. People suspected that when people were examined by this technology, they would fall under the influence of extreme charm. Not only would they expose many of their secrets, but they would also be directly controlled by this merchant company. Thus, under the doubts and even accusations of countless newspapers and people, this merchant company was forced to publicly apologize before they could even use this technology to gain any benefits. They stated that they would completely seal this technology and not use it. 2 weeks ago, the chairman of this merchant company came to the New Flyer, hoping to sell this technology to the New Flyer. In their view, the same technology would be questioned by countless people if it was announced by this unknown merchant company. But if it was announced by the New Flyer, such a thing wouldn't happen. After all, the New Flyer had an excellent reputation in the signs, and its reputation was unparalleled. Sui was very interested in this technology and had already sent people to negotiate with this merchant company. He planned to take over this technology and even directly poach the other party's research team. Such a groundbreaking and original researcher was a precious talent. Rather than wasting their time in this small merchant company, it was better to come to the New Flyer and develop properly. According to the feedback, this merchant company had basically accepted the New Flyer's conditions. It wouldn't be long before this technology and the research team would be under the New Flyer's name. Things similar to this merchant company's technology had happened many times in the past 10 years, especially in the past few years. Most of the time, Sui wouldn't take away the other party's technology and research team. He would even take the initiative to help them when necessary, so that they could carry on with their research. It was only this time that this merchant company's technology had aroused the doubts of countless people and became the target of public criticism that Sui took it into his own pocket. He also had the intention of protecting this technology. In short, under the lead of Sui and the New Flyer, all kinds of black technology based on magic had exploded in the signs. In just 10 years, the signs had almost completely changed. When many newspapers reviewed these 10 years, they would call these 10 years the Golden Decade. As for the beginning of the Golden Decade, it was Su Yi's Banta Declaration. Almost everyone was certain that because of Su Yi's declaration, it had brought the Golden Decade to the signs. Of course, in Su Yi's mind, just 10 years was far from enough. He hoped that these days would continue 20 years, 30 years, or even longer. But he also knew that it wasn't that easy to maintain a stable situation where everyone worked hard to develop. For example, he had met a very important problem right now. Thinking of this, Su Yi gave a sigh. Through a secret line, he called 70 who was far away in Anvilmar City's royal palace. Chapter 11:67. The image on the magic communication device gradually became clear, but it wasn't 70's image that appeared. Rather, it was a 17-18-year-old youth. Su Yi was surprised before raising his hand to greet him. "Hey, Raymond, how have you been recently? Where's your mother?" The youth that Su Yi called Raymond in the illusion was the Lampari Kingdom's crown prince, Her Majesty 70's only son, His Highness Raymond. Seeing Su Yi, Raymond gave a respectful bow and said in the most perfect manner, "Hello, Uncle Su. Thank you for your concern. My mother is currently discussing something with the ministers, so it isn't convenient for her to leave. She knew that Uncle Su would be contacting her today and was worried that she wouldn't be able to make it, so she sent me here to wait for you." Su Yi's face sunk a bit before returning to normal. Every time he contacted 70, Su Yi would notify her 3 days in advance so that 70 would have enough time to talk to him alone. This time was no exception. Even like this, 70 was actually discussing something with the ministers today and couldn't come. This surprised Su Yi a bit and also created a shadow in his heart. It seemed like 70 already knew what he wanted to discuss with her this time. Now that she made this arrangement, it seemed like she was deliberately hiding from him. Su Yi looked at the respectful Raymond in the illusion, who didn't reveal anything, and gave a sigh in his heart. If 70 had sent Raymond to talk to him on purpose, he would have to reevaluate the importance of this matter in 70's heart. "Raymond, did your mother tell you anything?" Su Yi asked. "My mother said that if Uncle Su has something important to discuss with her, you could tell me first and I'll pass it on to her. If you need to talk more, she will find time to talk to you again." Su Yi couldn't help laughing. According to 70's meaning, she could take the initiative to find Su Yi, but it would be hard for Su Yi to find her. If it was said that Su Yi had some doubts before, he was certain now that 70 was deliberately avoiding him. Su Yi stared at Redmond's youthful face, but he was trying his best to look mature and steady. He felt a little disappointed, although he had thought it through a long time ago. 70 was the queen of the Lampari Kingdom, and he was the chairman of a new flyer. So no matter how close they were, there would be conflicts in terms of benefits. So there would be a day when there would be a gap in his relationship with 70. From objective point of view, he had known 70 for 30 years, and their relationship had always been good, which was already a miracle. If the current situation was serious, it couldn't be considered a conflict between the two of them. It was just that 70 didn't accept all of Su Yi's suggestions like before, but rather she had her own ideas. Moreover, with her current identity and position, it was understandable for her to have these ideas. Only, the things involved in these ideas were the military magic machines that Su Yi had always been wary of. "Redmond, it seems like your mother knows why I'm looking for her. Since it's like this..." Su Yi was silent for a bit before saying with a sigh, "Then tell her something for me." Redmond looked a bit surprised, but he didn't ask anything and continued to respectfully say, "Please speak. Tell her that I hope she can stop and try not to touch my bottom line. I understand that she is thinking about the Lampari Kingdom, but ask her to consider my position. It wasn't easy for Signs to have peace for so many years. I don't want this situation to be damaged." Redmond's eyes opened wide as he looked at Su Yi in surprise. Since he was young, his mother had always told him about this Uncle Su Yi, giving him a deep impression of Su Yi since he was young. When he slowly grew up, he gradually understood Su Yi. He knew that he was the chairman of a new flyer and had done many things that affected Signs, so the admiration he had for Su Yi became deeper and deeper. In his impression, his mother and Sue E had a very good relationship in private, far surpassing the relationship between a normal man and woman. He had never heard of his mother and Sue E having different opinions, not to mention having any conflict with each other. But now, Sue Yi's words were filled with a warning. Why was this? Could it be that his mother had done something to make Chairman Sue angry? Redmond knit his brows to think about it, but he didn't have a clue at all. Sue could see that Raymond was really filled with questions. He shouldn't have been in contact with the things that 70 had focused on during this time, so he didn't know about this. He didn't point it out and said in a serious tone, "Just tell her what I said. I believe she will understand what I'm saying." Redmond could only give an O sound before nodding in response. The two looked at each other for a bit before Redmond couldn't help asking, "Uncle Sue, did my mother do something to make you angry?" Sue waved his hand. "Not now, but I don't know if it will happen in the future. It will depend on your mother's choice." Redmond thought for a bit before carefully asking, "Then, if my mother doesn't want to change, then what will happen? If your Lampari kingdom is stronger than our new flyer, then it won't be anything. But, you understand." Redmond immediately nodded. What a joke. Although New Flyer was only a company, the King's example proved that if they really fought, New Flyer's strength could surpass the two empires combined. Even if the Lampari kingdom had developed over the years and their national strength had increased by several dozen times, if they wanted to go against New Flyer, they would be asking for trouble. Chairman Sue suddenly saying this was enough to prove the seriousness of this matter. Redmond's heart was filled with doubt. New Flyer had been cooperating with the Lampari kingdom over the years, and their relationship far surpassed the New Flyer's relationship with the other countries on the continent. There were even many people who said that the Lampari kingdom and New Flyer were on the same level. They couldn't be separated at all. Although this was a bit exaggerated, it showed how close the relationship between the two sides was. However, he didn't know what his mother had done to make Chairman Sue say this. Did this mean that there was a crack in the relationship between the two sides? Redmond didn't dare to imagine what would happen to the Lampari kingdom if they lost the cooperation of New Flyer. "Sue, Uncle, I think my mother will definitely understand what you mean and give you a satisfactory answer. Please take into account that you have been friends with her for many years and try to understand her as much as possible. Okay?" Seeing Redmond's sincere face, Sue smiled and shook his head. "If it's a normal matter, I'm willing to do my best for her as a friend. I've proven this to her many times over the past few decades. But this matter is my bottom line. I don't want her to ruin my years of hard work." Hearing Sue speak so seriously, Redmond knew that there was no way to persuade him and could only nod silently. "Okay, Uncle Sue, I'll tell my mother your intentions and attitude." "That's good. Also, tell her for me that because our Chamber of Commerce has a few big projects that need to be carried out, we're short on manpower. I plan to call back the 2 groups of experts that were sent to your kingdom. I hope you can make the preparations." A bitter smile appeared on Redmond's young face. "Uncle Sue, you're not even listening to my mother's response, and you're already planning to punish her?" Sue smiled. "If she thinks so, then so be it." Redmond could only continue to smile bitterly. "Okay, that's all I want to say, nothing else." Redmond immediately bowed respectfully to Sue again and prepared to send him off. Suyi's hand had already touched the close button of the magic communication device, but his expression suddenly changed. He looked at Redmond in the illusion and asked, "That's right, Redmond. You're about to become an adult, right?" Redmond froze for a moment before nodding. "Yes. I remember your mother said before that in order to ensure that you can smoothly take over the throne in the future, once you become an adult, you'll be in full contact with all the government affairs. Are you prepared?" Redmond revealed a thoughtful smile. "I've already prepared everything." Good. Then, Redmond, let me ask you a more personal question. If it's not convenient for you to answer, you don't have to. Please ask. As the crown prince, in order to take over the throne in the future, will you be happy to accept this? Redmond froze for a moment, as if he was very surprised by Suyi's question. After thinking for a while, he answered seriously, "I'm my mother's only son. Taking over the throne is my destiny since birth. This is also my duty. On this point, I'm not happy or unhappy. I only know that as the only heir to the throne of the Lampari kingdom, my future duty is to become an outstanding king and lead the Lampari kingdom to become even more powerful. He stared at him for a while before slowly nodding. It seems like your mother taught you well. Although I'm not. Okay, that's it. Redmond, I hope you will become an outstanding king in the future. Thank you for your blessings. Then, goodbye. May the light of the goddess always envelop you. Until next time. Chapter 1168. The illusion faded, and Su Yi's figure gradually disappeared in front of Redmond. Redmond stood there with his head lowered, deep in thought. After a while, he was woken up by the footsteps in front of him. Looking up, he saw his mother's familiar face. Mother, why didn't you talk to Chairman Su personally? Could it be that you really did something to make him angry? Redmond couldn't help asking the question in his heart. Perhaps. 70 looked at where the illusion had been and gave a sigh. But to me, to the entire Lampuri kingdom, this matter is very important. It can be said that it is something that must be done. Just what is it? Redmond knit his brows. 70 took a deep look at Redmond. Redmond, Chairman Su just asked if you were prepared to take part in politics. Then let me ask you now, are you prepared to give your all to the Lampari kingdom? Redmond stuck out his chest and replied, Of course. I can give my all to the kingdom at any time. Very good. 70 nodded. Then let me ask you, to make the Lampari kingdom truly strong, what does it need the most? Redmond was stunned. This question was a bit too big, and he didn't know how to answer it. After thinking for a bit, he hesitantly replied, I think it should be unity and hard work. As long as everyone in the kingdom works together and works hard, we can increase the strength of the kingdom, and the kingdom will naturally become stronger. I'm not asking you to answer a question from a political class. Rather, I'm asking you something more specific. 70 shook her head. Something more specific? Redmond seriously thought about it with a bitter look. After a while, his expression suddenly changed. He suddenly looked up at 70 and confidently said, I know. It's power. Mother, you've always taught me that whether it is a person or a country, they have to have enough power to be considered strong. That's right. 70 revealed a faint smile. A country needs more power than an ordinary person. Without enough power, the only fate awaiting a country is destruction. Raymond was confused. Mother, what is this power you speak of? Based on the current situation and signs, as long as the new flyer existed, no country would perish, right? New flyer won't allow it. What if the new flyer is gone? 70 asked back. Or perhaps the new flyer's strength is not enough to suppress the other countries on the continent. Raymond fell silent. In fact, he had already considered this possibility when he started studying the politics of the mainland. But for so many years, the new flyer had been in complete control of the situation on the continent, making it so that no country on the continent dared to go against the wishes of a new flyer. This made people consciously or unconsciously overlook this point. The reason why New Flyer is able to have its current status, and even the two empires don't dare to go against it, is because it possesses power that far surpasses everything else. And this power is embodied in the military magic machines. 70 said, if there comes a day when the New Flyer's military magic machines aren't enough to suppress the other countries, the situation on the continent will change. Raymond thought about it before suddenly being surprised. He asked 70 in shock, Mother, could it be that the matter Uncle Sue mentioned was you secretly researching the military magic machines? 70 was silent for a few seconds before giving a slow nod. That's right. The kingdom is indeed researching the military magic machines. There's no need to be surprised. This research has been going on over the years. Moreover, it isn't just our Lampari kingdom. I'm certain that including the two empires, all the countries on the continent are secretly researching this. But the Continent Peace Treaty clearly prohibits countries from privately researching the military magic machines. Raymond anxiously said. No wonder Uncle Sue is angry. So you've been hiding this from him the entire time. 70 revealed a smile. You think he doesn't know about this? Raymond was stunned. He knows? Then why would he be angry? 70 looked at where the illusion had been, as if she could see Sue there. Perhaps it's like he said, it's touched his bottom line. Raymond had a confused look. He was still young after all. Even if 70 had trained him since he was young, it was hard for him to understand the tacit understanding between adults. All right, you don't need to care about this. Raymond, you're about to become an adult, and you're about to participate in the kingdom's politics. You said to Chairman Sue that you were prepared, so let me see if you're really prepared, all right? Raymond gave a muffled nod as a burning look appeared in his eyes. He already had a strong desire for the high and mighty throne. Hashtag. After ending the short call with Raymond, Sue sat there for a bit before leaving the manor. After 10 minutes, he appeared at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber Commerce and walked into the Magic Communication Research Department. When he walked into the department hall, he heard loud noises coming from inside. As far as the eye could see, a group of young people in brand-new, white uniforms were huddled together, chatting with each other. When Sue walked in, he attracted everyone's attention. Everyone was stunned before they broke out in a deafening cheer as they surrounded him. Chairman Sue. God, it's Chairman Sue. Chairman Sue, I am your idol. Oh no, that's not right. You are my idol. I'm really happy to see you. Chairman Sue, why are you here? Could it be? Sue, he was already used to this scene, so he casually responded with a smile. He looked over and grabbed a collie who was hiding behind the crowd, secretly laughing. What are you doing? Sue asked a collie. I'm giving a simple training to the new assistants. A collie gave a shrug and replied with a smile. At least I have to tell them what we're doing, otherwise they won't know if we sell them. What a joke. Sue glared at her before looking over the excited people in front of him. Seeing their youthful and energetic appearances, he felt that he was infected and the gloominess he felt from 70 disappeared. They're the assistants you chose this time? Sue gave a rough count before slightly knitting his brows. There's only this few people. Is it enough? There's no other way. How could I recruit that many people in a rush? Right now, people in this field are very popular, and even our Frestec Chamber of Commerce can't get all of them. Moreover, my requests are quite high, so there aren't many that can be satisfied. Being able to recruit these people, I'm already very satisfied. A collie helplessly said. That's right. Sue nodded. Then have you decided on your itinerary? When are you leaving? A collie glared at him. What? I've only been back for a few days, and you, as the Sir Chairman, want to chase me away? Sue, he could only roll his eyes. If you're willing to stay here and not run around outside, I'm more willing than anyone else. But are you willing? A collie waved her hand. I don't want to stay here all day looking at you and feeling sorry for myself. It's too boring. I'm used to running around outside over the years. I'm not used to you telling me to come back and stay here. That's right. Seeing the two of them talking without any scruples in front of them, it was like a collie's newly recruited assistants had discovered a new continent as they revealed looks of curiosity and excitement. A young girl suddenly asked in a loud voice, Hey, Chairman Sue, Master Akali, are you like the rumors, a couple? Akali and Sue looked at each other and laughed at the same time. Akali smiled as she held on his Sue Yi's arm, showing an intimate posture. Yeah, what's wrong? Everyone suddenly became more excited. A few young boys even whistled. The scene was very lively. Okay, stop fooling around. Sue helplessly shook his head, but he didn't break away from Akali. He just said to everyone, You guys wait here. I have something to tell Akali. Oh. Everyone responded with a special meaning, their expressions full of ambiguity. Sue directly ignored them and motioned for Akali to follow him into an office. After closing the door and confirming that there was no one else in the office, Sue Yi's smile disappeared and his expression became serious. Akali, for this project, can you make an accurate estimate of the time? Akali looked at Sue with some confusion. Didn't I say before? Without going to the site for a period of time, I can't accurately estimate the progress of the project, so it's impossible to give you an accurate estimate. And you should be very clear about the environment there. There are too many unexpected situations that can affect the progress of the project at any time, so it's even more difficult to estimate. After that, Akali frowned and asked, "Why are you suddenly asking this again? Is there a problem?" "I don't know if it will be a problem now, but I have to remind you. According to the latest news I received, several countries, including the two empires, have plans to enter the Endless Ocean, so it is expected that there will be many fleets from other countries going deep into the Endless Ocean. They also have their eyes on the sea area we chose, so you have to be careful there." Chapter 1169. Akali was stunned for a moment before she snorted with disdain. "What? Do they dare to make a move against us? Do they have the guts? Of course they wouldn't dare on the signs, but on the endless sea, they might dare if necessary," Su Yi said with a serious expression. Seeing Su Yi's serious tone, Akali put away some of her contempt, and a trace of doubt appeared in her heart. Why would those fellows suddenly be interested in the endless sea? With their current situation, shouldn't they be developing the magic machine industry in their country? Su Yi shrugged. Maybe they feel that it's hard to take the initiative and surpass us with the current situation, so they want to find more opportunities and resources in the endless sea. With just them, don't look down on those old countries too much. In the past 10 years, they have been biding their time and focused on developing. In fact, their development has far exceeded my expectations. Although they are still lacking compared to our company in terms of technology, compared to 10 years ago, it's not like they can't compare to our company," Su Yi said. Akali was slightly stunned. "Sir President, what do you mean by that? Could it be that those countries are doing something dishonest?" Su Yi's mind flashed with a long-distance communication with Redmond, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. He shook his head and sighed. "It's fine now, but I'm afraid that in the near future, when they feel that they have enough strength, they will become dishonest. TCH, then let's give them a good lesson." Akali clenched her fist and coldly snorted. "Those fellows have been peaceful for 10 years. I'm afraid they have forgotten the lesson they were taught 10 years ago. It's time for us to give them a deeper impression." "Where did this violent person come from?" Su Yi snappily rolled his eyes at her. "Our current goal is still to develop steadily. Unless it's necessary, I won't allow anyone to destroy the current situation. So unless they go too far, I won't easily make a move." Akali glanced at Su Yi with a helpless expression. "Sir President, your greatest weakness is your soft-heartedness. You see, if you had made up your mind earlier, signs would have already entered the stage of full development. That's only if I have enough power." Akali wanted to say more, but Su Yi patted her shoulder and stopped her. "All right, I'm just here to give you some instructions. As for the other aspects, I will arrange for another fleet to be responsible for the safety of the research team led by you. You should be familiar with the person in charge of the fleet command, Schuster, who has been to the Demon Cloud continent several times before." "Yes, I've seen him a few times, so I'm quite familiar with him." "Well, you could go find him tomorrow. I have other things to do, so I won't accompany you. In addition, I may have to go on a long journey in a few days. I may not be able to make it back in a short time. If you leave in the next few days, I won't be able to send you off." Akali revealed a faint smile and waved her hand, looking like she didn't care at all. "Forget it. I've gone to the Demon Cloud continent several dozen times, and you've only sent me off 5 times, right? I'm already used to it. Then again, I'm not Steel. Why do I need you to send me off?" Su Yi revealed a helpless smile and said a few more things before bidding farewell to Akali. ####. 6 days later, the prepared Akali led her research team and a fleet of 26 magic ships to set off in the harbor of the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's main base, leaving the Signs continent. This time, her destination wasn't the Demon Cloud continent, but rather the sea between the Demon Cloud continent and Signs. According to the plan, the new flyer would set up a research base on several small islands in the sea. However, the purpose of this research base wasn't to conduct research on long-distance hyperspace magic signal transmission. Rather, it was to build a hyperspace magic signal transfer station. As for the research on hyperspace magic signal transmission, The research team, led by Akali, had already made a breakthrough last year. They had already secretly conducted experiments and had succeeded. The reason why this magic signal transit station was built in the endless ocean, in addition to continuing the next step of the experiment, was to pave the way for the realization of long-distance instant communication between the Signs continent and the Demon Cloud continent. If the plan went smoothly, Akali would finish the construction and debugging of the magic signal transfer station in half a year, connecting the two continents in a year. This was a very important project, whether it was for Signs or the Demon Cloud continent. It had a very important meaning, so the new flyer attached great importance to it. As the manager of the new flyer's magic communication research department, Akali even personally led a team to the front lines. When Akali led her research team out, at the same time, Su-E appeared 6,000 kilometers away, in a small country called the Kurani Kingdom to the east of Signs. This Kurani Kingdom wasn't that big. It was only twice the size of the Principality of Constantine. Among the many kingdoms on the continent, it was considered a very small country. This country didn't have that many people. According to the incomplete statistics, it only had around 500,000 people. The population density could be considered the lowest on Signs. This country wasn't rich in resources. In this small country, over half of it was covered in desert, and the rest of the land was barren, producing very low yields. The reason why the Kurani Kingdom was able to survive for so many years was not only because it had no value of being invaded, but also because the people of the Kurani Kingdom had developed a fierce culture in such a harsh environment, making it difficult for them to be completely led by others. But this also made the Kurani Kingdom neglected and even viewed with hostility by the surrounding countries, making it very hard to obtain resources. It made the lives of the people of the Kurani Kingdom very difficult, always being in a state of half-starvation. The reason why Su-E suddenly appeared in this small country that didn't seem to have any value wasn't for itself, but rather for a large plan. Since Su-E made the Banded Declaration 10 years ago, saying that all the countries on the Signs continent had to enter the stage of developing the magic machine industry, most of the countries on the continent began to promote the development of the magic machine industry in their countries. But because the new flight commerce main base was in the southwest corner of the continent, the main influence was also in the southwest corner of the continent. So in these 10 years, the countries in the southwest corner of the continent, the two empires and the countries around the two empires had all developed to varying degrees. The other countries couldn't obtain this advantage, so they developed much slower. The most clear difference was that the countries in the east developed slower than the countries in the west and center. Now, there was a phenomenon in the Signs, which was that the west was stronger and the east was weaker. It also made the citizens of the east move to the west on a large scale in order to live a better life. According to the incomplete statistics that weren't very accurate, in these 10 years, the population of the western countries had increased by a large amount. The reason for this was because of the high birth rate brought by the increase in grain production, as well as large amounts of people migrating. These large amounts of people migrating were mostly from the poor countries in the eastern part of the continent. This made the population density of the eastern countries not increase, but decrease in these 10 years, forming a clear contrast with the western countries. The only exception was the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. But the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom was made up of 13 companies, which was different from traditional countries. Their influence wasn't enough to cover the entire eastern part of the continent, so naturally they couldn't change the trend of the eastern countries. In order to change this imbalance, and to better discover the potential of the eastern countries, using the various resources hidden in them, Su-E proposed a large plan, the Eastern Development. The goal of this plan was to allow the eastern countries to enjoy the benefits of the comprehensive development of the magic machine industry and change the environment of the eastern countries so that they would not be too far behind the western countries. In the end, it was possible for them to catch up with the western countries. It had to be said, this plan was too large. It involved over 30 countries in the eastern part of the continent and a large population of over 100 million people. When Su-E proposed this plan in the internal meeting of New Flyer, It was unanimously opposed by the higher-ups of the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. But when Su-yi seriously analyzed the potential benefits of this plan, he was able to convince the higher-ups of the other companies. Su-yi even convinced the two empires, as well as the countries in the southwest corner of the continent, to join in. So when he chose the Kuranyi Kingdom as the first stop of this plan, in addition to the investment team of New Flyer, there were also representatives from the two empires, as well as many other countries, including more than 30 companies. In fact, the two empires, the other countries, and the various companies didn't have much confidence in the plan that Su-yi proposed. The reason why they agreed to participate in the end was all because of Su-yi. The first target that Su-yi chose was the Kuranyi Kingdom in the eastern part of the continent, which was known for its poverty, chaos, and backwardness. This really surprised everyone, but they still followed. But everyone, including Su-yi, didn't expect that as soon as they arrived in the Kuranyi Kingdom, this small country would immediately give them a show of strength. Chapter 1170. Looking at the thick black smoke coming from below and the flames that lit up the city, it was clear that the city was in chaos. Everyone looked at Su-yi in surprise. Count Gondal, who had just been promoted to the head of the Kamla Empire's business department, was silent for a bit before he couldn't help opening his mouth. Chairman Su, I thought that the Kuranyi Kingdom would at least prepare a battle array and properly welcome us. Su-yi knit his brows. After thinking for a bit, he waved his hand behind him and called over the commander of the magic airship he was on. Send down the order. Send out a small team to investigate outside. Based on the situation here, the culprits shouldn't have gone far. Bring those fellows back for me. Yes. The commander left with this order and quickly passed down Su-yi's orders through the communication device of the magic airship. After a while, the 8 magic airships split into groups of 2 and flew off in 4 different directions. Chairman Su, it's like this down there, should we? Seeing that Su-yi's expression wasn't good, Gondal and Marquis' tone became cautious. Wait for a bit. I'll go down and take a look. After Su-yi said this, he suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. Gondal, Marquis, and the representatives of the various countries and companies that came with Su-yi were all stunned. The meaning of Su-yi's words was, he was actually going down to the city to investigate the situation? This was too risky, but everyone quickly reacted. Su-yi had already reached the Archmagus realm 10 years ago. How could there be any danger? Thinking of this, everyone put down their worries about Su-yi's safety. But seeing the chaos in the city below, everyone was filled with worry about the future of this operation. For this investment in the Kuranyi Kingdom, the countries and companies that they represented weren't that confident. The reason why they sent representatives was because of Su. It wasn't because they had that much confidence in the Kuranyi Kingdom. They thought that Su-yi would have already arranged everything, which was why he brought them all here. But they never thought that as soon as they arrived, they would see the Kuranyi Kingdom's capital city falling into chaos. It didn't look like it was stable and suitable for investment at all. If it wasn't for Su-yi, their first reaction after seeing this scene would have been to immediately turn and leave. A country that couldn't even protect its capital city, what value did it have to invest in? This question also appeared in Su-yi's mind before he threw it out. He chose the Kuranyi Kingdom as the first target of the Eastern Development Plan, not because the environment here was good enough, but because the environment here was bad enough. As early as 2 years ago, when he decided to carry out this plan and chose the Kuranyi Kingdom as the target, Su-yi already had a good understanding of the situation in the Kuranyi Kingdom through many investigations. This Kuranyi Kingdom, strictly speaking, it never had a relatively complete national system, so it was a bit of a stretch to call it kingdom. Although the Kuranyi Kingdom had always had a king, but since the establishment of the Kuranyi Kingdom more than 300 years ago, its kings had changed as many as 11 surnames, and no family had been able to rule the kingdom for more than 30 years. Such a country with extremely unstable evidence and frequent rebellions was obviously not a suitable place for investment. But Su-yi chose this place. His idea was simple. If he could fully integrate this country into the magic machine industry development system and make it a stable country that could focus on developing the magic machine industry, then among the countries in the eastern part of the continent, there would be no country that couldn't solve this problem. From another point of view, this choice was not very rational. After all, if he chose a country with a better environment, the results would come faster and easier. But Suyi's goal was to develop the entire eastern part of the continent, so he deliberately chose the most difficult target as his first target, so that he could progress faster in the future. But the reality in front of him made it difficult for him to take the first step. Help! Suddenly, there was a cry from the front left, and then it stopped abruptly. Su-yi frowned, moved his body, and instantly flashed to the place where the sound came from. Several brawny men, wearing leather armor and holding large swords, were surrounding a woman whose clothes had been stripped off. One of the brawny men had already taken off his trousers and was approaching the woman with a sinister smile. The woman's mouth was covered by a strong man, and her hands were tied together by another strong man. She couldn't move at all and was about to be defiled. Su-yi snorted coldly, and several wind blades suddenly flew out and accurately cut the necks of the strong men. The strong men only felt a chill on their necks, and then several mouthfuls of blood spurted out. They didn't even have time to make a sound before they fell to the ground. Su-yi picked up a windbreaker and threw it to the woman, then took out the magic communicator again. Send guards down and maintain order in the city. After giving the order to the guards, Su-yi suddenly flew up and looked around in the air. He quickly locked on to the buildings built on a hill in the north of the city. That was the palace of the Kuranyi kingdom. At this time, there were a few plumes of black smoke and several flames coming out of it. Obviously, it was not spared. Seeing this, Su-yi immediately understood that he might have encountered another rebellion in the Kuranyi kingdom. After thinking for a while, Su-yi's body flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was already above the palace. Looking down, he found that the palace was filled with the sounds of killing. There were all kinds of strangely shaped corpses and blood everywhere. It seemed that the rebellion was not completely over yet. However, Su-yi didn't have much hope for the situation here, because he had already tried to contact the king of the Kuranyi kingdom with a magic communicator, but there was no response. So, either the king threw away the special magic communicator given to him by the new flyer, or he was already dead. Su-yi looked around and flew to a group of soldiers who were holding swords and running around. They were wearing the same style of leather armor as the strong men he saw earlier. The soldiers suddenly saw a person flying in the air. After being stunned for a moment, they immediately attacked Su-yi without holding back. Of course, the simple bows and arrows in their hands posed no threat to Su-yi. Su-yi easily killed the rest of the soldiers, leaving only one guy who looked like the leader alive. Through the illusion magic that he had learned from Elder Undine and the deep research he had done on it, Su-yi easily obtained the information he wanted from this leader. Just as he guessed, there was a rebellion in the Kuranyi kingdom. And according to the information provided by the leader, the one who started this rebellion was General Lefalu of the Kuranyi kingdom. With his decisive military power and the arrangements he made in advance, when the rebellion started, he had already killed the king. He also took the opportunity to kill a large number of ministers and generals who opposed him. Now, he had basically controlled the situation in the capital. As for why he suddenly chose this time to start the rebellion, the leader didn't know. Su-yi also knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him, so he asked for General Lefalu's current location and went straight to him. A few minutes later, Su-yi went straight into the Kuranyi kingdom's council hall, which was located in the center of the palace. Looking up, there was a tall figure sitting on the throne. It wasn't the king of the Kuranyi kingdom that Su-yi had met several times with a new flyer, but it was a big man with a rough face. Seeing Su-yi suddenly appear, the big man was stunned for a moment. He then shouted and stopped his subordinates from attacking Su-yi. "Chairman Su, you're the Chairman Su of the new flyer, right?" The big man looked at Su-yi with wide eyes. Not only was there no fear, but there was also a look of surprise on his face. He wasn't surprised that the big man recognized him, because his image often appeared in the major newspapers and the illusions projected by various magic illusion projectors. He was already known by many people in the signs. "Your General Lefalou?" Sui asked back. The big man laughed and patted his chest hard. "That's right. I'm General Lefalou. Chairman Su, you're here this time to bring people to invest in the Karani Kingdom, right?" He wasn't surprised that the big man knew about this. After all, he was the Karani Kingdom's general with military power. However, he frowned and didn't intend to answer the big man's question. He asked again, "You killed King Simpson?" General Lefalou was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't expect Su-E to ask this question. After looking up and down at Su-E, he still laughed loudly and said, "That's right, I killed him. That bastard Simpson actually secretly planned to get rid of me. How could I let him have his way? I don't care about the grudge between you and King Simpson, but great General Lefalou, King Simpson is our Frestac Chamber of Commerce's partner. You killed him and caused the Karani Kingdom to fall into chaos, hindering our Frestac Chamber of Commerce's investment plans. So how are you planning on compensating us?" General Lefalou narrowed his eyes and looked at Su. "What? You plan to avenge that old bastard Simpson?" He was silent. General Lefalou grunted. A trace of anger appeared in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. "Chairman Su, I don't think this will hinder the investment plans of the Chamber of Commerce. Although that old bastard Simpson is dead, the Karani Kingdom still exists. As long as the new flyer supports me to take control of the kingdom, then I will give the new flyer much better conditions than Simpson. What do you think?" He looked at him, then looked at the soldiers who were ready to make a move. He smiled and shook his head. "Sorry, I don't like to cooperate with people like you. And what you said just now reminded me that since King Simpson is dead, you can take control of the Karani Kingdom and cooperate with us. In that case, why don't we take control of the Karani Kingdom ourselves?" General Lefalou's expression changed greatly. Chapter 1171. Supreme General Lefalou was dead. This was another rebel of the Karani Kingdom. After he started the rebellion and killed the king of the Karani Kingdom, he didn't even get to ascend the throne for an hour before he was taken down by President Su-E of the New Flyer. After that, the New Flyer guards easily defeated the rebels led by Supreme General Lefalou and stabilized the situation in the Karani Kingdom without much effort. After all, the Karani Kingdom was a small country. With the powerful New Flyer guards and the even more powerful Su-E personally overseeing the situation, there was no way for them to stir up any more trouble. After dealing with the rebels, Su-E quickly found a lucky 12-year-old boy among the surviving heirs of the former king of the Karani Kingdom and supported him to succeed the throne. He also announced that Supreme General Lefalou was convicted of treason and would be executed according to the laws of the Karani Kingdom. Thus, another rebellion in the Karani Kingdom was easily resolved. This small country also regained some semblance of stability under the deterrence of the New Flyer guards. After that, the Karani Kingdom officially announced that they would carry on the will of the former king and cooperate fully with the New Flyer to develop the Karani Kingdom on a large scale. Thus, the New Flyer and the various countries and chambers of commerce that came with the New Flyer began to move together. Countless manpower and resources were continuously transported into the Karani Kingdom. The Karani Kingdom also began to build roads, magic communication networks, and various magic supply stations. In short, everything was developed in the Karani Kingdom according to the more developed countries in the west of the continent. If this rebellion didn't happen in the Karani Kingdom, then according to the agreement signed between the New Flyer and the former king of the Karani Kingdom, although the New Flyer would cooperate with other countries and chambers of commerce to develop the Karani Kingdom, they definitely wouldn't be able to act and develop as quickly as they did now. But because of the rebellion in the Karani Kingdom, the New Flyer took advantage of the situation to quell the rebellion and support a new king. At the same time, they also took control of the situation in the Karani Kingdom, so they didn't have to worry so much and everything went smoothly. In just 3 months, The rudiments of the magic industry system had already appeared in the Karani kingdom. There were new changes almost every day. Although not everyone in the Karani kingdom was obedient, after the new Flyers guards attacked several times and completely wiped out some of the bandits hiding in the desert, no one in the Karani kingdom dared to go against the will of the new Flyer. Therefore, no one dared to obstruct the new Flyer's every move. The speed of the new Flyer's construction was even faster than the other countries on the continent. The representatives of the other countries and chambers of commerce that came with the new Flyer were hesitant at first. They were also a little apprehensive about the methods the new Flyer would use in the Karani kingdom. But after they saw the new Flyer building factories in the Karani kingdom and forcing almost all the citizens of the Karani kingdom to work in the factories and even producing the first batch of products, they couldn't hold back anymore and started to act. For a time, the Karani kingdom had almost turned into a huge construction site. All kinds of buildings rose from the ground, and everywhere was bustling with activity. Even the deserts that used to cover more than half of the Karani kingdom's territory had changed because of the arrival of the Moon God Environmental Protection Chamber of Commerce. This Moon God Environmental Protection Chamber of Commerce was proposed by Su-Yi. In the end, the three Elven tribes, the Night Song tribe, the Moon Shadow tribe, and the Azhara tribe transferred some of their manpower to form a joint chamber of commerce. The purpose of this chamber of commerce was as its name indicated. It was mainly to protect and improve the environment. One of the major goals was the desert. With the elves' fine tradition of vegetation and their unique life magic research that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, the elves were able to grow vegetation even in a harsh environment like the desert. They were able to make it flourish and eventually become a lush forest. This ability had caused a lot of trouble for the humans who took over the continent after the racial war. Because the elves had controlled the continent for tens of thousands of years, almost the entire Signs was covered in dense forests. Humans, on the other hand, found it difficult to live in the forests. Therefore, after gaining control of the continent from the elves, whether it was for profit or out of hatred for the elves, the humans wantonly chopped down the forests. While they chopped down large areas for humans to live in, they also caused serious soil erosion due to excessive logging. As a result, large areas of deserts had appeared in the Signs. As for the deserts, humans did not have many ways to manage them, so the situation became more and more serious. Now that the three Elven tribes had established this special chamber of commerce under Su-Yi's suggestion, there was finally hope for the deserts to be managed. It could be considered as Su-Yi's contribution to the environmental protection of the Signs. Of course, this Chamber of Commerce was not doing free work. According to the agreement between Su-Yi and them, for every 10 hectares of desert that was purified, the Chamber of Commerce would be able to gain control of 1 hectare of land. This was naturally the best condition for the three Elven clans who desperately wanted to control the land under their own control. Therefore, although the Moon Goddess Chamber of Commerce had been established for less than 5 years, they had already improved the environment of many deserts in many countries. Of course, it would not be possible to completely manage the deserts in a short period of time. According to the Moon Goddess Chamber of Commerce's estimates, they would not see any results in the Karani Kingdom's desert for at least 1 or 200 years. However, for the elves who had a much longer lifespan than humans, 1 or 200 years was not a long time, so they could afford to wait. As for Su-Yi, it was enough as long as they could stop the deserts from deteriorating. In any case, the population of the Signs was not that large, and the current land resources were already very abundant for the population. It would be at least a few decades or even 100 years before they needed to consider improving the deserts to meet the needs of the population. And this would only happen if the Signs remained peaceful and stable. Therefore, Su-Yi was not too worried about the Karani Kingdom situation. The development of the East was an extremely large plan, and developing the Karani Kingdom was only the first step. According to his estimates, he did not think that he would be able to complete this plan in his lifetime. What he was doing now was just laying down the foundation. Only, the methods he used during this process were a bit more intense, A thick report was placed in front of the Kanla Empire's emperor, Alfonso Kanla. It took him more than an hour to carefully read through the thick report. When he finally finished reading it, he calmed himself down and thought for a while. Then, he spent half an hour reading it again. It could be seen how important this report was to him. When he finished reading it the second time, he finally looked up. He closed his eyes to think for a bit before turning to look at the Empire's Prime Minister, Duke Garbut. Why is Sui making such a big move in the Karani Kingdom? He isn't planning on annexing the Karani Kingdom. Before this report was given to the Kanla Empire's emperor, Duke Garbut had already carefully read it, so he naturally understood the emperor's meaning. Thinking about it, he carefully replied, although Sui isn't interested in territory, based on his actions this time, he might really want to annex the Karani Kingdom. The Kanla Empire's emperor knit his brows to think for a bit before shaking his head. He shouldn't. If he really wanted territory and even created his own country, he would have had plenty of chances before. He wouldn't have waited until now. Moreover, the Karani Kingdom is over 6,000 kilometers away from the New Flyer headquarters. He wouldn't be so unwise as to choose that place. Duke Garbut thought for a bit before shaking his head with a bitter smile. I really don't understand what his intentions are. If it's just for the development of the East, he wouldn't need to use such intense methods. That's right. What I don't understand the most isn't what he did, but rather why he did this. The Kanla Empire's emperor patted the report with a trace of doubt in his eyes. There are many ways to deal with the Karani Kingdom, but he chose the most intense method. This doesn't match his general style of doing things before, so this makes me a bit unsettled. Duke Garbut's heart skipped a beat as his expression changed. Of course, he understood why the emperor was unsettled. 10 years ago, the New Flyer Guards and the Kingdom of Ruhr had defeated the two empires in one fell swoop. Everyone thought that the New Flyer would chase after them and crush the resistance of the two empires, finally ruling the continent themselves. With the scale of a New Flyer at that time, perhaps it would be hard to control them, but with the absolute military might of the New Flyer, it wouldn't be hard to make the signs submit to Sui. However, Sui went beyond everyone's expectations. At the most critical moment, he chose to negotiate peace and kept the two empires. After that, the situation of the continent didn't change much. Although the Lampari Kingdom, the Drake Duchy, and the Kingdom of Ruhr had benefited greatly from this, for the two empires and the entire signs, this change was considered very small. No matter what the New Flyer did, at least the two empires still existed and maintained their absolute dominance over other countries. At that time, Sui didn't want to become the ruler of the continent, so the two empires could be said to have escaped a disaster. But now that 10 years had passed, what if he changed his mind? Chapter 1172. Duke Garbut was silent for a bit before slowly shaking his head. Your Majesty, I feel that you don't need to worry. Sui's style this time is a bit more intense compared to before, but I don't think that this is a change in his thoughts. Perhaps. He's just a bit anxious this time. The Kandra Emperor looked at Duke Garbut before saying with a smile, You're quite confident in Sui. Duke Garbut was silent for a bit before straightening his body and saying with a serious look, Your Majesty, based on Sui's actions in the past 10 years, of course I have confidence in him. Seeing the determined look on his most trusted minister's face, the Kandra Emperor fell silent. If it was said that the New Flyer was at its peak 10 years ago, and even the two empires' army couldn't stop the New Flyer Guards, no one would believe that Sui didn't have any ambitions. But after that, Sui let go of the great opportunity that everyone thought he had and rejected the temptation of power. Instead, he worked hard to pull in all the countries of the continent to develop the magic machine industry, acting like he wanted to develop the magic machine industry. This was something that everyone didn't expect. And in the 10 years that followed, Sui had led the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to carry out what he said in the Banta Declaration. From beginning to end, he had focused on helping the various countries of the Signs continent develop the magic machine industry, improving the living conditions of the people of the continent. He had never made a single change. Not caring about the other countries, just speaking of the Kanla Empire in the past 10 years, with the help of Su, Yi, and the new flyer, it had greatly improved. The Kandra Emperor had been on the throne for over 30 years, but in the first 20 years of his reign, even if the Kanla Empire was one of the two empires of the continent, and could even be considered the strongest country on the continent, it couldn't be considered peaceful at all. Even if they didn't mention the external threats, just inside the giant Kandra Empire, there were all kinds of disasters each year. There would even be a large natural disaster every few years, causing chaos in the empire and the refugees to be displaced. As the emperor, the Kandra Emperor had quite a bit of trouble solving these matters in the first 20 years of his rule. However, 10 years ago, the Kanla Empire completely gave up its resistance and was forced to cooperate with the new flyer without reservation. With the help of the magic machine industry brought by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce, the Kanla Empire rapidly changed and improved at an astonishing speed. First of all, the most important issue was food. Because of the cooperation with the new flyer had been effective in the Lampari Kingdom for a long time, and had become a comprehensive farming system that had been introduced into the Kanla Empire. With the help of large amounts of agricultural magic machines and the fertilizer provided by the elves, the grain yield of the Kanla Empire had greatly increased each year in the past 10 years. In less than 4 years, the Kanla Empire had achieved the goal of having enough food that they couldn't achieve in the past 1,000 years. Starting from the 5th year, there wasn't a single famine in the empire. As for people dying of starvation, it was very rare, almost completely extinct. As for disasters, the new flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce worked with the various governments of the Kanla Empire to carry out large amounts of road projects, water conservancy projects, and other preventive projects. Other than a large flood in the 2nd year, in the past 8 years, there hadn't been a large flood in the Kanla Empire. As for droughts, with the perfect water conservancy projects, it was much easier to resist. Even if it appeared, it wouldn't create a true disaster at all. Of course, there was no way to avoid all natural disasters in this world. But in the current Kanla Empire, even if a disaster did appear, because of the perfect road network and convenient transportation methods, any disaster relief materials could be sent to the disaster area and into the hands of the victims. This could minimize the disaster in the shortest amount of time, so naturally it wouldn't cause any problems. Of course, the most important thing that the Kandra Emperor thought was the magic communication network that covered the entire empire. With this thing, communication was very convenient, even surpassing the common sense of the Signs people. Before this, because the Kanla Empire was just too big and the terrain was very complicated, it was very inconvenient to send any information. Whenever something happened, it would take 10 days to half a month, or even a month for it to reach Wimbledon City and let the Empire know. But now with the coverage of the Magic Communication Network, no matter what happened in the Kanla Empire, as long as it was covered by the Magic Communication Network, it could immediately reach Wimbledon City and even let the Emperor know. Take the flood that happened in the Northeast province in the first half of this year as an example. As soon as there was danger, the Northeast province's Governor Manor received the news and immediately reacted. In less than half an hour, the Empire's Parliament also received the news and immediately contacted the Northeast province's Governor Manor. After receiving the details, they gave detailed instructions. The next morning, large amounts of relief materials were sent out from Wimbledon City and arrived in the Northeast province in just 3 days. They were sent to the disaster area on the 4th day and worked with the Northeast province's Governor Manor to easily suppress the disaster. The entire process was very fast, and there was no chance of the disaster spreading at all. It also didn't cause any chaos among the affected citizens, which could be considered very efficient. If it was the same thing, in the first 20 years of the Kandra Emperor's rule, the Northeast province's Governor Manor would only receive the news after several days. By the time they reacted, the disaster would already be out of control. When the Empire's Parliament received the news, it would take at least half a month. When the relief materials arrived, it was impossible to estimate how long it would take. Being able to smoothly deliver it was already considered good. Now, with the existence of long-distance communication, it was hard for the Northeast province to hide the truth. This was because the empire's parliament, and even the emperor, could immediately know the exact situation of the disaster through the magic communication network. Not to mention that New Flyer had recently released the long-distance magic image transmission technology. The empire's central government could use this technology to see the exact situation of the disaster from several thousand kilometers away, so they couldn't fool them like before. To make it even more exaggerated, if the Kandra Emperor wanted to personally visit the disaster area, he could take a magic airship and fly to any place in the empire in less than a day. If it was before, the emperor leaving the palace would cause a commotion and bring countless problems, making it very hard for him to travel. But now, with the convenience of transportation, the emperor could leave whenever he wanted. Anyway, he could come back at any time, and he could contact them at any time, so it wouldn't affect other important matters. As for safety, the Kanla Empire's royal guards were the troops that the New Flyer supported the Kanla Empire, so they could buy some military magic machines from the New Flyer. They had battle strength that far surpassed the other troops of the Empire. With their loyal guards, unless the New Flyer guards attacked, there was no need to worry about the Emperor's safety. So with the convenient long-distance communication technology, which far surpassed the speed of transportation in the past, the Kandra Emperor only needed to sit in the royal palace to know what was happening in all parts of the Kanla Empire. After being on the throne for 30 years, it was only in these few years that he felt like he was in control of the empire. Because before this, he was very clear that even if he was the emperor, he didn't have any real control over the nobles of the empire. The reason was very simple. He couldn't control them at all. So objectively speaking, whether it was from the point of view of the people or his control as the emperor, the Kandra Emperor had reason to thank Su Yi and the New Flyer. It was Su Yi and the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce that brought the magic machine industry that could bring such a large change to the Kanla Empire, allowing the empire to move towards prosperity. Moreover, Su Yi had been fulfilling the promise he made in the Banded Declaration in these 10 years. He and the New Flyer had always done their best to help the Kanla Empire develop the magic machine industry. Other than the military magic machines, the New Flyer spared no effort in all other aspects, giving the Kanla Empire almost anything they needed. Even if the New Flyer didn't completely release the technology, they had revealed quite a bit in these 10 years, allowing the Kanla Empire to quickly develop their technology. It wasn't like 10 years ago when they didn't know anything about the magic machine industry. The current Kanla Empire, even if they didn't have the New Flyer, it could be said that they had a complete magic machine industry, which was enough to satisfy the needs of the empire. No matter how one looked at it, Su Yi had been consistent with his words and deeds in these 10 years, never showing any excessive desire for power. He didn't interfere with the internal affairs of the Kanla Empire like the people of the Kanla Empire were worried about. So even if it was someone like Great Duke Garbut, he couldn't help feeling respect for Su Yi. He didn't hold back at all from showing his confidence in Su Yi to the Kandra Emperor. He was right. If Su Yi had this kind of ambition, he could have done it 10 years ago and had countless chances to do it in these 10 years. How could he suddenly have this idea 10 years later? However, the Kandra Emperor still couldn't relax. He looked at Great Duke Garbut and said with a sigh, "Great Duke, you should understand what I mean. My worry isn't because Su Yi isn't willing to do this, but rather if he can do this." How could Great Duke Garbut not understand the Emperor's meaning? He looked at the Emperor and could only give a bitter laugh. Chapter 1173. That's right, perhaps Su Yi really didn't have any desire for power. Perhaps it was like he said, he just wanted to use the magic machine industry to change the lives of all the people on the continent. Perhaps he really didn't plan on replacing the two empires, perhaps, but this was at most the guesses of other people. No one was certain that this was his plan, and no one was certain that he would keep this idea. If he suddenly changed his mind one day and was willing to obtain more power, who could stop him? As the emperor of the Kamla Empire, of course he couldn't place all his hopes on Su Yi's will. Rather, he wanted to control it himself. So it wasn't important if Sue was willing to do what everyone was worried about. The important thing was if he had the ability to do it. As long as he had the ability, other people, especially people like the Kandra Emperor who stood at the peak of power, wouldn't be able to feel assured. However, this was something that couldn't be helped. After 10 years of development, the new flyer was countless times stronger compared to 10 years ago. Just the new flyer guards were already over 100,000 people, with 17 sea fleets and 13 magic airship fleets among them. No one knew the specifics, but they were certain that they were at the top of the military magic machines. The battle strength of the new flyer guards was definitely enough to crush the other countries of the continent. So no matter how unsettled the Kandra Emperor was, he couldn't do anything to the new flyer and Sue for now. With the current military strength of the Kanla Empire, perhaps they could maintain their advantage over the other countries of the continent, but they couldn't do anything to the new flyer. Your Majesty, I feel that. There's no need to consider this problem for now, Duke Garbut said after a bit of silence. What method Sue chooses doesn't make much of a difference to us. Moreover, I don't think that he will suddenly change his mind. Not to mention that his target is the Karanyi Kingdom. So if he really has this kind of idea, there's no need to waste time, right? The Kandra Emperor gave a long sigh and slowly shook his head, throwing out the chaotic thoughts brought by this piece of news. Indeed, no matter what Sue wanted to do, he couldn't change it for now. The most important thing now wasn't to care about what Sue did. Rather, it was to think of a way to do his own things. Duke, the people of the Lampari Kingdom have already arrived at the Teller Valley. Find some time to go and pass on my message. Yes. Other than that, I'm planning to increase the budget for the Teller Valley next year by 30%. What do you think? The Kandra Emperor asked. 30%? Duke Garbut frowned. Your Majesty, last year we invested more than 70 million gold coins in the Troll Valley. If we add another 30%, wouldn't it be close to 100 million gold coins? This amount. I'm worried that the Parliament and the Ministry of Finance will have objections. The Kandra Emperor waved his hand and gave a cold snort. According to the report from the Finance Department, the Empire's annual income this year will be over 600 million gold coins. What's the big deal about investing 100 million gold coins in such an important matter? Could it be that they still don't understand? If we don't have these things as a backing, no matter how glorious the Empire is, it would just be an empty shell that could be toppled at any time. Duke Garbut gave a bitter laugh. He was very clear on what the Emperor was referring to. From the angle of the Empire, the Emperor wasn't wrong at all. Otherwise, he is the Prime Minister, the Parliament, the Senate, and the Finance Department wouldn't have agreed to this matter all these years, as well as increasing the funding and manpower. All right, I will discuss this with the Parliament and discuss the specific amount. As for the Teller Valley, I'll go see them when I have time in 4 days. Your Majesty, do you have anything you want to say? The Kandra Emperor shook his head. There's nothing special. You just need to represent me. I understand. The two discussed some of the Kanla Empire's policies before Duke Garbut left. After walking out of the royal palace, Duke Garbut got into an extended, pure black magic sedan that looked very luxurious. He didn't head to the Parliament. Rather, he slowly drove towards the west gate of Wimbledon City. Today was the 8th anniversary of the first steel mill in Wimbledon City, and it was also the day that the first steel mill produced 10 million tons of steel. On this commemorative day, the first steel mill had specially invited Duke Garbut, who had been in charge of the first steel mill, which he had happily agreed to. Now that he had been delayed by the Emperor, perhaps the people at the first steel mill had been waiting for a long time. Thinking of this, Duke Garbut ordered the driver to go as fast as possible. However, it was currently 10 in the morning, which was a rather busy time in Wimbledon City. There were cars all over the road, and no matter how skilled the driver was, he couldn't jump over the traffic and could only slowly follow the traffic. Seeing the crowded streets outside, Duke Garbut knit his brows. He thought that the Parliament had been discussing the reconstruction of Wimbledon City since last year should speed up. With the continuous construction of the industrial zones around Wimbledon City had attracted a large number of people from the outside world. In addition, due to the continuous increase in the food production of the Empire and the stability of the situation, the birth rate had skyrocketed. As a result, the population of Wimbledon City had more than doubled compared to 10 years ago. In this situation, the already crowded Wimbledon City couldn't take it anymore. So a few years ago, there was a proposal to rebuild Wimbledon City in the Empire. There were even people who boldly proposed that it would be better to build a new city. Compared to this, Duke Garbut was more inclined to the latter proposal. This was because not only was the amount of work needed to rebuild the old city, it was also very difficult and the results weren't good. It was very hard to solve the current problem. Rather to build a new city, it seemed exaggerated and would require a large investment. But in reality, the investment wouldn't be less than rebuilding the old city. Not to mention that there was a very large benefit to rebuilding the new city, which was that they could replan it and satisfy many different needs. It was much more convenient than rebuilding the old city. It had to be known, with the development of the magic machine industry, the lifestyle of the people on the continent had greatly changed. Wimbledon City that had been built several hundred years ago couldn't keep up with the situation and was even considered behind by countless people. To give a simple example, when Wimbledon City was first built, although they tried to make it as big as possible, the streets in the city could hold at least 6 horse carriages side by side, which was considered very spacious on the signs. But now in Wimbledon City, there were private magic sedans all over. If one ran on the streets, they would see brand new magic sedans all over. Adding in the public transport system in Wimbledon City, it made the streets of the old city very narrow, which wasn't good for smooth traffic at all. Duke Garbut suffered because of this. Even if he was the Prime Minister and the Duke of the Empire, he couldn't avoid being stuck in traffic. It was because of this that many nobles and rich citizens of Wimbledon City moved out of the city to avoid the various inconveniences in the city. If they built a new city, they could avoid this situation from the beginning, and naturally, it would solve many of the problems that troubled countless people. Moreover, when it came to building a new city as early as 20 years ago, the New Flyer had already experimented in Bana City. Then the New Flyer had built a new sheen-faced city in the Principality of Constantine, which almost became the model for modern cities on the continent. With this precedent, it wasn't that hard to build a new city in Wimbledon City. At least the New Flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had clearly stated that they could provide technical and personnel support to the Canla Empire. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had even told the Parliament that they were willing to build the new city in Wimbledon City. They just needed the Canla Empire to provide the funds, and they didn't need to care about anything else. Of course, the Parliament wouldn't agree. So the Empire was currently in contact with the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce and the New Flyer while planning the construction of the new city. On this matter, Duke Garbut, as the Prime Minister, he clearly supported the construction of the new city and asked the Parliament to come up with a solution as soon as possible. Because the Parliament and the Finance Department had problems with funding and technology, it was hard for them to come up with a solution in a short period of time. So they were in a deadlock. Now that Duke Garbut saw the situation around him, he naturally hoped that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce and the New Flyer could make a concession as soon as possible. This would allow the construction of the new city to start early and solve this problem as soon as possible. Of course, there was another solution, which was to move out the various institutions of the empire in Wimbledon City, even moving out the royal palace. That way, they wouldn't need to be stuck in Wimbledon City to go to the various institutions and the royal palace. It was a pity that it was easy to move out the institutions, but it was wishful thinking to move the royal palace. The Canla Empire's royal palace had already been built in the same location as the Canla Empire, so it had close to 1,000 years of history. His Majesty would never touch such a historical and symbolic palace, let alone move it away. Duke Garbut looked at the scenery outside the window and couldn't help but sigh. Although this ancient empire was powerful because of its age, it was also decadent because of its age. It would always restrict people's footsteps in various places. Chapter 1174. After around an hour, The magic sedan carrying Duke Garba slowly drove through the gate of the #1 steel mill in Wimbledon. The group of people who had been waiting for more than 2 hours hurriedly came forward with smiles on their faces. However, none of them dared to show the slightest impatience from waiting for too long. The first one to come forward wasn't the manager of the first steel mill or any leader of the first steel mill, but rather the Kandra Imperial Magical Industries Administration's minister as Skindal Marquis. The commemoration of the first steel mill didn't need someone as powerful as him, Sir Marquis, who was popular in the Kanla Empire. But after learning that even Duke Garbut was participating, he decided to participate without any hesitation. So with him and Duke Garbut participating, this commemoration event quickly became the most important event in Wimbledon City and even the entire Kanla Empire, receiving the attention of countless people. Now, although the process of this event was slightly delayed because of Grand Duke Garbut's unexpected tardiness, no one dared to blame the Grand Duke, so after a slight pause, they immediately followed the flow of the event. After Duke Garbut got out of the car, he greeted everyone. He was planning on giving a speech according to the plan, but he never thought that when he went up to the podium, he would see a guest that he didn't expect. "Oh, dear young Miss Freya, I never thought that you would also participate in this event. It really is a surprise." The Grand Duke of Garbut, with a smile far more radiant than he had shown to the others, approached Freya, who was already on her feet. Freya, with the same perfect and sunny smile, bowed gracefully to the Grand Duke of Garbut. "Lord Duke, I decided to represent our new flyer to participate in this event, so it isn't strange that you didn't know." Duke Garbut laughed. "Young Miss Freya, being able to invite you to this event, the people of the first steel mill must be very happy, right?" Count Redinger, the manager of the first steel mill behind Duke Garbut, quickly came forward and nodded while saying with a smile, That's right. Young Miss Freya being willing to participate in this event is our first steel mill's honor. It means that the friendship between our first steel mill and the new flyer will always be firm." Hearing this, Duke Garbut looked at Count Redinger before revealing a smile and making an inviting gesture to Freya. "Young Miss Freya, since you're here, why don't you come with me to the front to say a few words?" Freya waved her hand. "I just spoke as the representative of our new flyer. Now we're all waiting for the Lord Duke's speech, so we can start the lunch banquet." At this point, Freya showed a playful smile, and there was a trace of complaint in her tone. "To be honest, Lord Duke, I've been waiting here for so long. I'm a little hungry." Duke Garbut laughed again. "It's really my fault for making young Miss Freya wait for so long. Don't worry, I'll just go up and say a few words. At the lunch banquet, I hope young Miss Freya can sit with me. I have a lot of questions to ask young Miss Freya. I don't dare to ask. If Lord Duke has anything to ask, just ask. As long as I can answer, I won't hide anything." Freya smiled sweetly. The smile on Duke Garbut's face froze slightly. This Freya, she's not even willing to be polite? What does she mean by "I won't hide anything"? Does she mean that she will have a lot of questions that she won't answer? But thinking of the usual style of Freya's father, Su-E, Duke Garbut immediately felt relieved. As the eldest daughter of Su-E and the only heir appointed by Su-E, it was natural that Freya's style of doing things was similar to Su-Yi's. After exchanging a few words with Freya, Duke Garbut walked to the podium alone and began the long-awaited speech. Although he said to Freya that he would just say a few words with his identity, since he came to participate in this event, he would inevitably enjoy the final scene. So, of course, he couldn't really just say a few words. He spoke for nearly half an hour on the stage, reviewing the development history of the steel smelting industry in the Kanla Empire in the past 10 years, before he ended the speech. At this time, it was almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the group was obviously hungry. But fortunately, Duke Garbut was originally the finale. Now that he had finished his speech, the whole morning's event was declared over, and the group was led by the leader of the steel mill to the location of the luncheon. At the luncheon, the table where Duke Garbut sat was of course the most noble table. In addition to Duke Garbut, Count Redingle, the director of the first steel mill, and a Skindal Marquis, the minister of the Magic Industry Management Department, were also accompanying him. Of course, there was also Freya. Miss Freya, you came to our Camla Empire this time because of the Magic Communication Network, right? After 3 rounds of wine, Duke Garbut asked Freya, who was sitting next to him. Yes. Freya nodded. Then, since Chairman Su sent you, Miss Freya, in person, I presume you intend to agree to the Empire's request? Freya smiled, revealing 2 small canine teeth, and slowly shook her head. It's not confirmed yet, but I can tell the Grand Duke a piece of good news. Our Chamber of Commerce is indeed interested in transferring the technology of the Magic Communication Network to your country. But the premise is that your country can give us a satisfactory condition. Duke Garbut laughed. As long as you are willing to transfer the conditions. Of course, we could talk about it. After saying that, Duke Garbut raised the wine glass in his hand and motioned to Freya. Come, let's toast to the success of our cooperation in the future. Freya raised a glass, but it was just ordinary juice. However, she did not touch the glass with Duke Garbut, only raised her hand and took a sip. Then she smiled and said, I'm sorry, Grand Duke, my father is very strict with me. I'm not allowed to drink until I'm 25 years old. Seeing Freya's actions, a trace of gloominess flashed across Duke Garbut's face, but in the blink of an eye, it was replaced with a smile again. Chairman Su's upbringing must be very strict. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to raise such an outstanding daughter like you, Miss Freya. Speaking of which, Miss Freya, I heard rumors that you and Chairman Su have an agreement. When you're 25 years old, it's up to you to decide if you want to take over New Flyer. There is such an agreement. Freya nodded. The other people at the table had been listening to the conversation between the two. Now that they heard this answer, everyone was even more focused. They even forgot to drink their wine and all looked over. The issue of the successor of New Flyer was not only a very important issue for New Flyer, but also for the entire Signs. The successor of New Flyer would determine the long-term policies of the other forces in the future. There was no room for carelessness. Therefore, countless people on the continent were extremely concerned about whether Freya would take over New Flyer. Originally, this issue didn't pose a problem to others at all. Although Su-Yi had many children, he had already announced that Freya was his only successor when she was born more than 20 years ago. Therefore, everyone believed that Freya would definitely take over New Flyer from him in the future. However, when Freya grew up, a rumor gradually emerged that Freya might not necessarily take over New Flyer. She might even choose to give up on becoming the next president of New Flyer. At first, almost everyone didn't believe this rumor because no one thought that Freya would give up such an important position as the president of New Flyer. However, in the following years, various rumors about Freya continued to spread, gradually proving this point. Su-Yi, this guy, actually gave Freya the right to choose whether she wanted to take over New Flyer or not. Then, Miss Freya, if I remember correctly, you will be 25 years old next year, right? Have you made up your mind? Duke Garbut asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Freya rolled her big eyes, wondering how many times she had to answer this question. I haven't decided yet. Freya shook her head. Right now, I'm not interested in becoming someone like my father, but I can't guarantee what I'll think about this time next year. Everyone looked at each other. What kind of answer was this? It was as good as not saying anything. Marquis of a skin doll couldn't help but say, Miss Freya, I see that you have begun to frequently come into contact with New Flyer's affairs in the past few years. This time, Chairman Su has given you full authority to deal with the transfer of the Magic Communication Network technology. Presumably, you are actually ready to accept New Flyer, right? Freya pouted slightly and said unhappily, This is a trap that my father deliberately dug. I have no interest in dealing with this matter myself. Everyone could only look at each other again. It sounded like the way Su-Yi and Freya, this father and daughter pair, got along was far beyond everyone's expectations. However, they could also hear a piece of good news from this, and that was that Su-Yi obviously intended to let Freya take over. Since Su-Yi had this intention, then if nothing unexpected happened, Freya would eventually obey his wishes and take over New Flyer. In other words, The candidate for the next president of New Flyer was basically confirmed to be this excessively young and beautiful Miss Freya in front of them. Thinking of this, everyone's enthusiasm for Freya immediately rose. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.